We have Mr. H back with us this morning. We got some early reactions from Venom. Disney's at it again with the gender swapping. Oh yeah, and Andre saw Dune. That a little bit more this morning on Midnight's Edge of the Morning. Good morning, it's the middle of the week. How's everybody doing? I am Tom Connors. With me as always is the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Greetings, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And
oh, go ahead. I was just going to introduce.
Yeah, no, and especially thanks to our very special guest for today and my good friend, Mr. H. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad you introduced me as your good friend because I've been we've had some interesting discussions about comments dropping by. Apparently, we've got this massive feud going on. Apparently, we hate one another, and I'm like, Andre, what's happening?
That's news to me.
Do we hate one another? What's going on?
Well, for one, if you don't stream for like 10 minutes together on YouTube, it's like forever. And I can see where people get that way. And, you know, there's other people where if, you know, you're a little critical of somebody else and say you don't like what somebody said or somebody else said, then automatically you don't like them.
That's it. We got beef. We got beef. Anyway.
Beef.
Well, the beef here is beef cake. So.
Beef cake.
Oh, dear. Yeah, I'm good. How are you all? How's everything going?
It's been going. Yeah, it's been interesting. Andre's had an interesting day yesterday. Other than that, it's been just business as usual for the most part.
Yeah, it's like in general, the day does not have enough hours. That's like the biggest problem with everything. I just love the time when the sound, the swishing sound that deadlines make as they swoosh by. So yeah.
Yeah, well, especially when YouTube has major issues as well. Did you see you couldn't upload any thumbnails? Like I had a video.
That's what happened. What happened.
Exactly. So, it was a known issue that they've reported now, and it's like, well, yeah, obviously it's a known issue. Like literally no one could upload anything. Pain in the ass. Couldn't release anything because you couldn't do the thumbnails. Just wouldn't let you upload it. It's the weirdest thing. Very frustrating, but never mind.
Yeah, pain in the ass. Yeah, like it's so great when the platform you're on really does everything to help you out, like random unsubscribing people by the hundreds and everything like that. So yeah, good times.
Yeah, love it. The best. The best.
Speaking of the best, we just got a new member, Carries, with the awesome Gorge the icon right there, joined us as a member. So welcome. And yeah, we have some cool things to talk about today. We have some movies we're going to see. Michael Miller wonders, should I rewatch 80s Dune and show again before movie? You know what? No, you shouldn't. You should just go and create as much distance in your mind from the previous adaptations as possible before seeing the new one, and see it and judge it on its own merits, and then afterwards, then you go back and rewatch 80s Dune and the miniseries. That's the order to do it. To do that properly.
We also have a little Conan news this morning as well.
Do we?
We do indeed, and we'll get into that as we get rolling here. Before then, Ed Starr also became a new YouTube member. So welcome.
Ed Starr's a dude. He's a massive supporter of my channel. So shout out to Ed Starr.
Well, thank you for being here.
He's a really good guy. He's genuinely a really nice chap. So,
well, I'm sure he'll be glad to know that we're not beefing then.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, you know, please, some people piss off the others. So, you know, is what it is.
Exactly. Exactly. You
gotta have really thin skin to be as upset as some people think you are half the time on the internet, I tell you.
Oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
And then Morgan King sent in $2 Canadian and said, Andre, is it true that Conan and the Cthulhu have?
It says, and then the second one says,
yeah, exactly. And the second one are in the same world. Kind of a little bit, because all of Robert E. Howard's creations, they take place in the same world, and Howard and Lovecraft, they were really good friends. Like, they were pals. They never met one another, but they wrote pretty extensively, to the point where you would call them friends. Like, their publications, their letters back and forth, have been released in not just one, but 3 dense books. And they would include references to each other's work. So one of Howard's stories is actually a full-fledged mythos story. Now, that is not a Conan story. That's actually a story about Bran Macmorn. But since that takes place in the world of Conan, and it also takes place in the world of Lovecraft, then by implication, Conan would also take place in the world of Lovecraft. Yes.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good round out of it. I'm an avid Lovecraft fan. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty bang on. But probably like maybe a during his great slumber, Conan's events were happening. That's a good way to sort of justify the absence of Cthulhu.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Valliant Renegade, our good friend, says, what a treat, Andre and H together to squash silly rumors of animosity and heat on. See you guys in just a bit. Let's talk Dune. Yes, so let's talk everything else before then. And Mr. H, we have a great question for you here. Michael Miller asked something that's very close to you. Of course, I know the answer as well, but let's you do this one. What happened to Mega City 1?
Unfortunately, Kingsley happened to Mega City 1, and a lot of issues with producers leaving, scrapping the entire team that they had, having to start completely from scratch, pilot scripts being binned off, dumped, having to start again from scratch. I read the original pilot script. It was really good. I really liked it. And then they had to completely scrap that and just go. And now they're focusing on America Jara.
No.
Yeah, no, that is what they're focusing on. Whereas the original, so the original plan, the original pilot script, it was interesting. So it had it focused on a bit of the sort of Russians versus the Americans first. And then there was bits of sort of subversive spies in there, and it was really good. It didn't focus on America Jara, any of that nonsense. You had you had sort of rookies, as they had sold it to me anyway. When I did the interviews with them a good few years ago, was that they would have, Judge Dredd would sort of come in on the peripheral, and you'd see the world through these rookies. But then they would cross over with Dredd, and it on face value, a lot of people hate that. But in the pilot script, it did actually work, and execution matters, and it could have fallen apart anyway. But then that's all gone, and now I have it on good authority that they are just focusing on America Jara, that's about it.
Okay, that's
is it America Chavez? I can't remember the name.
I think it's America Jara. America Chavez is another character altogether. Like in Dredd, it's America Jara. I don't know anything else about the story, but I can tell you right away, just from what you've said there, and what Jason Kingsley, the Kingsley you're referring to, that of course is Jason Kingsley. He's the owner of Rebellion, therefore the ultimate owner of the Judge Dredd IP. Yeah. Sadly, he has shown through this series to have, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but I think that he has a fundamentally warped understanding of the character, how to bring it to life. And it's because of that they lost Carl Urban. If they wanted to do a series with Urban, they could have done it, but it's his idiotic take that's preventing it.
So that's half true, because I know that conversations were had with Carl Urban. They would have had to have met some pretty stringent demands actually from Carl Urban, i.e. like flying his entire family over and putting them up for the entirety of the season shoot, which is quite a large ask for a first-time studio. But then they would have had to have completely rewritten the season for Carl Urban. He wouldn't have done it on the peripheral, which I get, because people wanted him back, and he obviously
and I agree
into that.
I
do agree. But where I say I sort of slightly disagree is on sort of Jason Kingsley's motivation. So he's not the right man for the job anyway. But it's not so much that he fundamentally sort of doesn't understand it. He does understand it. It's that he doesn't understand what consumers want. He has drunk the sort of liberal left, and I say liberal very loosely, by the way, but the liberal left Kool-Aid, and he wants to sort of appease that market rather than, it's not. He wants to try and appease that market rather than fundamentally understanding what made 2000 AD so good. But then 2000 AD has gone downhill because their sort of satirical approach to things has gone almost had a left-leaning political slant to it lately, and that sucks because if you're not going to be satirical about everything, then you really shouldn't be satirical about anything because it's bias, isn't it, at that point? So I add in, but then also sort of clarify a few things there.
Well, thanks for that. You know this 10 times as good as I do, so you're the authority on this one. What I will say, though, that just knowing that and with what you said, him now developing a series centered on America Jara, what that is code for that if it happens, Mega City 1, the series, is going to be woke as F. It is not going to feature Judge Dredd other than in guest appearances. It will be about the strong, independent woman in the Jara that's there to take down the patriarchy. That's what the series is going to be about.
You know what, though? I just don't think it's happening. Like, I have Jason Kingsley's direct email, and I've just stopped bothering asking him now. I'm like, I don't care about any updates. Like, I genuinely think it's not happening. I don't care anymore. Like, I don't even care to ask him because I just don't think it's happening. This is now turned into I'll believe it when I see it. Like, it's just become a big joke. So yeah, terrible, absolutely terrible. Again, like it's. We can all cry about it, about America Jara and stuff like that. But I actually just don't think it's going to happen anyway. I see it. I don't see it moving forward. So I don't think there's anything to actually be concerned about because they've had so long and they've got so many things in place. If they wanted to do it, they could have just done it by now. And they just not. Like, they literally have a massive. I've been to their studio space and it was huge. It is massive. If they wanted to do it, they could do it now, but they don't want to do it. So it's not happening. It's not happening for a long time.
Yeah, unfortunately, or rather fortunately, because I'd rather it not happen for a long time than it happen and be done wrong. Yeah. And if it's done the way that Kingsley wants it done now, it would be done wrong. I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
Before we get into the proper stories here, we're going to run through more comments and super chats here. Shotgun Fringe says, "Hail Midnight's Edge. Andre, if you're ever in Texas, you should visit Cross Plains. It's where Robert E. Howard is from and lived, and his family house is still there, and you can tour it." Oh, yes, wow. I absolutely intend to visit Texas one of these days when travel is made possible again. And then, obviously, I'm going to Cross Plains, preferably in conjunction with the Howard days. So, yeah, well aware of that, but thanks for the tip. And then we have, let's see, we got that one. And then our good friend Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, says for $20, listening in from the tax office bunker in USA. I can't wait to see Dune on the big screen. Hail, brothers Andre and Tom, and great to see the always insightful and great Mr. H. Yes, very kind. Indeed. Professor Gray has a question. Rough guess on Dune's international take. And with that, we can kind of get into the first story, because we have now some estimates. Because here's the thing. Dune doesn't open until October 22nd in the US, but in numerous European locations, it opens today. And with advanced screenings, it opened yesterday, which is when I saw it. So we do have some estimates. I saw one estimate. I'm going to see if I can find it here because it came a little bit before I was ready for it. But one estimate pegged it at like a $20 to $25 million international opening weekend.
How much? Sorry,
the 20 to 25 million.
How many markets is it opening in, though?
That's the question, because this is the one where it's really difficult to do any kind of.
So it's not opening in the UK yet. So if it's only opening so it's open where you are, right, Norway.
Yeah.
Is Australia getting it? But they can't go out of the house, can they? So has Australia got it yet? Because Australia got a whole bunch early.
Yeah, that would be a complete waste, because they're living in the real life megacity one right now with lockdowns and everything.
True.
Tom, I put the link in the private chat so we can see the story from Deadline Hollywood. If you can put it up on screen.
I either have to produce or I have to edit your review. I guess I'm producing.
Oh,
Producer Tom.
Yeah. Multitasker Tom.
Yes.
20 million offshore debut.
Yeah. Exactly. Only the beginning as global rollout starts. International box office preview. Mr. H, would you like to read this? Since you have a better reading voice than I.
Yeah, if you scroll down a little bit. Oh no, I need to. I'll get it up on my chat as well.
Too, if not.
So where are we on this? So Warner Brothers legendary pictures sci-fi epic Dune is starting early rollout this weekend, looking to capitalize on momentum coming off of its star-packed world premiere at the Venice Film Festival. That was like, what was that, a week ago? 2 weeks ago? Which was followed by an event at Paris Grand Rex Cinema and screenings at Deauville and Toronto, all in the past 2 weeks. Yes, I thought it was about 2 weeks ago. The Denis Villeneuve-directed adaptation of Frank Herbert's 1965 classic will be playing in just 24 markets this weekend. Okay, so those markets specifically, the major of those markets are France, Germany, Russia, Italy, and Spain. You know what? I don't think 20 million's that bad for that. I don't think that's that bad at all.
No, it sounds pretty good for only a few markets.
Yeah, that does actually sound really decent.
It does, and I will also say that Norway is such an insignificant market that it wasn't even listed here among the major markets. But even in tiny little Norway, the screening that I was at yesterday was completely packed to the brim, or at least as packed as can be given the restrictions with the social distancing, and they only sell out half as many seats and stuff like that. But with that, it was absolutely packed. And the contrast to Shang-Chi couldn't be greater, because I saw that at the first screening too, and then we were literally 20, 30 people in the same auditorium. And this is an auditorium which fits, I don't know, like 800 people or something.
So I think what's interesting about this as well is that there is only 150 IMAX screens. That's actually quite small for IMAX screens. That puts it in perspective. I mean, 24 markets, but of those are only 150 IMAX screens. That's not that much at all. That's
and this is a movie that you really want to see in IMAX. And I can imagine it's going to be pretty satisfying in 3D as well.
Yeah, but I'd say that's actually really decent. Now they then go on further and say pandemic era comps to consider for Dune include Black Widow. No, while Villeneuve's 2017 Blade Runner 2049 is also worth noting, given the film's pedigree and history in like-for-like markets and at today's rates, those films opened to 22.8 and 24.4 million respectively. So they're saying that in those markets, Black Widow opened to 23 million. Blade Runner 2049 with an adjustment open to 24.4 million respectively. I don't think Blade Runner's a fair comparison. Blade Runner 2049 didn't really have as much hype behind it as Dune currently does. My dog is going mental. I have to unmomento.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I kind of know where he's coming from. And yeah, and even got my dog going. I know where he's coming from on that. Like, yeah, like when Blade Runner 2049 came out, I don't think Warner knew what was going to happen. And yeah, it has this niche audience. It's been a cult classic for a while. I don't know if it really had. It was one of those movies that could be a mass, audience film. And I was just kind of standing on your.
Sorry,
Mr. H.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I don't think Blade Runner 2049 is actually a fair comparison because it didn't have that much hype behind it. Dune, the trailers have been absolutely mental in terms of viewership. Admittedly, it's still quite niche, but the trailers themselves have ballooned up. There's a lot of anticipation for it, which they even note here, stating anticipation is high for Dune in Europe, which it is. That you can feel it. You talk to people about it, there is that general sense that people really want to watch it. So I don't think that's a fair comparison. Black Widow is definitely not a fair comparison, but they are predicting similar between them all, mid-20s. But then what does Shang-Chi make internationally on its opening weekend?
Ooh, internationally it didn't do as well.
But that's interesting because it opened to more
they only
markets.
fortified the box office in the US. It didn't do anything to speak of. I don't know. I don't have the detailed international numbers, but I know in Norway, dead. Completely.
Let me get that for you, or have a look, see if I can find it. So
52, if I'm reading this right, or 56.2 for standard overseas frame.
Okay, but
then it's not in just those markets. I mean, then they were talking about the entire worldwide international,
13,
which is very different from these particular markets.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the interesting comparison. And that's one that's going to be a little bit more tricky to generate because none of the trades will have made it because it's going to be pretty embarrassing.
I actually think that's pretty good. I think mid-20s in such small markets, because they are small markets, and you've got to remember France currently has quite stringent measures in place. Russia doesn't. Italy, I believe, still does, and I believe Spain still does. I'm not overly sure about Germany, but France definitely does. Italy, as far as I'm aware, they still do. So out of these markets, they're still, to still look to get about the mid-20 range in such a small cross section of the market. I'd say that's pretty good.
I would say so. Yeah, that's actually a really strong start.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty decent.
Well, and as I pointed out to everybody, I mean, the Dune trailer, even though it came out a month later, was outpacing and outperforming the Batman trailer, which by a long shot, which was crazy. And
I think even me and Andre spoke about that because we were like, we had questions when Andre was on my channel. Do you think
I think
June's
I brought that up
really
to
well?
you guys, or he brought it up that I had brought it up. Yeah, because I just happened to notice that. Because I think at the time I looked, I can't remember the exact numbers, but like the Batman, which had come out the month before, was at like that 30 million view range. But
didn't Dune get like 20 odd, like just like that?
Yeah, but did. But then by the time I looked, where it was like 2 months in for the Batman and a month in for Dune had already garnered like 60 some million to the Batman's 30 or 40 million.
Yeah, that was the difference. That Batman that petered off, whereas Dune just kept on growing and growing. It didn't stop.
And that's where I asked Andre last night if he thought it had that Lord of the Rings potential, because that's one thing I've seen for a while. I mean, granted, I don't think it'll ever have the financial potential now, but I'm curious if maybe this is the moment for Dune, right? Like, they had the hiccups with Lord of the Rings in the past. They tried. It was just that right moment, right time with Peter Jackson. He happened to just capture it perfectly. I wonder if that's the same thing here with Dune. I mean, there's just so much going into it where it might be the right time for it, where people are sick of the Star Wars thing, but they still got a little bit of taste for that, sword and sorcery and sand and sandals, kind of thing with, between Game of Thrones and all that kind of stuff, and they're maybe they got a bad taste in their mouth after that. Dune's kind of the perfect mix between the two. Add in that it's got a lot of the young adult kind of thing going for it. I mean, I know it's not a young adult novel, but it has a lot of those same elements that we
Well, I
see.
mean, you're hiring Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet.
Well, exactly. Like,
They
clearly
are a
they're going
young
for
person.
that.
Draw. You know,
Yeah.
like we're old as hell, but even we can see that
But I'm
these
saying
people have
it has so many
massive,
potential on
massive
so many
fans.
different levels. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, a lot of people watching this will be outside of the age bracket, so they potentially won't be able to see it. But Timothy Chalamet's like, he has like fangirls out the wazoo, you know, and they will go and watch this as a result of that. You know, he has a certain.
Well, I just saw a video
fangirl
yesterday where some
stardom.
fangirls were just freaking out because he kissed them through glass or whatever. It's like, oh my god,
Exactly.
the Beatles all over again.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that bodes very well for it. That bodes very, very well for it.
That's actually very clever. That they because that only means that they get like all of the marketing. You know, not marketing. We'll get into that.
Well, no, and people yelled at
but
me
all the
for it, but I brought it
casting,
up before.
strategic casting.
I'm like, I can see this tapping into that young adult group, the ones that went after like Hunger Games and shit like that. I can see that. I can see that potential in it. Now, I'm not comparing the two. Don't even think that I'm in any way, shape, or form comparing Dune to Hunger Games, but I do see them going after similar audiences, and I can see this being a bigger movie than anybody really kind of anticipated. Now, I don't know how that bodes for the box office with the current situation, though. That's the shitty part.
But they have already made it clear that if the movie does well with HBO Max,
aren't they reporting that this is Warner's most expensive movie ever or something like that?
It's not Warner's.
I would not be surprised.
Warner's only gave 25%.
Legendary paid the rest.
Yeah.
Legendary paid 75% for this. People really have to stop promoting this as a Warner Brothers movie because it's not. Legendary made this. It's 75% theirs. It's a Legendary production. It's a Warner's distribution. So it's literally the same. It's the same thing that happens with the Monsterverse. Legendary need a distributing partner, also a co-financier, but they only do 25%. It is their production. The buck stops with them. It's always Legendary that's involved in the production side of it. Do you want to do this? Yes, we agree. No, we don't. It's Legendary.
Yeah, exactly. I will say though that the movie is obviously a very, very expensive movie, and you can totally tell. I mean, there are very few movies where the money is so obviously on screen as in this one. Which is why I say if you have the opportunity to see this one in an IMAX theater, that's where you want to see it.
Well,
speaking of wanting to see it, everyone, please smash that like. Help share this stream. That would be most helpful. So yeah, hit that like.
3D anyway. But no, I like going off of your review a little bit, Andre. I mean, I get where you're coming from on reading the script, and it's hard to separate from that. I've been there before, but I think eventually you will be able to, because I had the same problem with Dogma. Kevin Smith's Dogma, because I read the script 2 years before I saw the movie, and the script is epic. Like, the script is this huge 200-page epic film, and then when you see the movie, it's this chopped down 2-hour thing. And my first experience was similar to yours. It was like, where's the movie? Like, half the movie's gone. It's like, and then I had to sit through it again, and I'm like, okay, now I see where Kevin came from. You know, as far
for
as
those wondering, Tom is giving a teaser from my upcoming review, because one of
you
my
mentioned
things,
this last night too. So
yeah, that too. But for those that didn't see it last night, one of my things is that I obviously read the script for this movie, and that put me in a position of bias a little bit, because I had kind of like visualized the movie in my mind's eye based on the script. And then what I thought were some of the best scenes weren't there in the final movie. Now, that's like a me problem that no one else is going to have. So I'm curious to see how the audience is going to react to this. But then first I have to see it. Sondar says, I don't care if it's good. The producers and marketing told me to not watch it. So why should I financially support them? And he then, of course, is referring not specifically to the trailers, but to all the other interviews that have come out.
Here's my thing with that. Have they actually come out and said that it's not for white men, though? That's the only difference. I haven't heard that aspect.
No, they haven't said it. You can
and I think Zontar, you do yourself a favor if you checked out Andre's recent editorial, because I think he does a great job of pointing out how the media is running with this movie in comparison to what it actually is. And I don't think it's the same kind of crap we've seen before so much. They're not out there calling the audience a bunch of idiots.
No, they're not doing that.
But they are showing their ass, that's for sure.
What they're doing is that they're saying, oh, this is such a problematic property from such a problematic writer, but we, in our virtue, we made it better and safe for you to watch. That's kind of like what they're saying in the behind-the-scenes interviews and stuff like that.
You know,
I haven't watched the audience.
I haven't watched any of that crap. I've not bothered.
Oh, you should see that interview with Rebecca Ferguson.
It doesn't sound like I should. Let's be honest. It's just going to sour my mood towards it. Why
it definitely would.
You know?
Yeah, she clearly has no idea what the fuck she's talking about.
I mean, actors are below prostitutes, right? They are literally paid to pretend to be other people, right? Okay, actors are below prostitutes in the ringing of anything. No one should listen to a goddamn actor. All right, no one cares about actors. Get out of politics. Get out of any lectures. Get out of it. Right, you are literally lower than a prostitute. But I also think like a lot of people don't tend to sort of overlook the media's narrative on things. Like the media will spin what someone has. I mean, I don't know because I've not seen those things, but there's a lot of things that the media will then spin even further. I mean, look, just for instance, because I went onto your stream, Tom, when you were talking about the Indiana Jones thing. Yeah. That comes from, and I've spoke to Andre about this on WhatsApp. That comes from the Mail Online. Don't trust the Mail Online. Oh, yeah. I've got a source working on this movie, and they were like, "No, it's total bollocks." Like, no, she doesn't wear the hat at the end. No, that's literally total bollocks. No, that's not the case at all. And you got to remember, is like the media is playing up the SEO as well. They are looking for things to cause outrage over. It's fabricated outrage half the time.
Yeah, and we basically said it's probably bullshit, but at the same time...
I can tell you it's definitely bullshit.
The problem we have, though, Mr. H, is we live in a world where something like that is not above the realm of possibility. That's why. And even if she doesn't necessarily put the fucking hat on, that does not mean that it is above Kathleen Kennedy, that she plans on continuing the Indiana Jones franchise with her instead of Harrison Ford. That doesn't mean that's
who the hell wants to watch Harrison Ford do another Indiana Jones anyway? Like,
I don't want to watch anybody do anything with Indiana Jones, period. I don't want him to sully it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I would liken, so again, not to get too off topic, but I would liken that to the Creed and Rocky franchise. You introduce a character in one franchise as it's narratively dying, because the characters are narratively too old to function anymore. And then you spin that franchise off into its own. I think that's actually perfectly acceptable, because you then allow a character that is either good or bad to sink or swim on their own merit, because you call it something else.
Yeah, but
you can't call it Indiana Jones. You can't
call it that. They were planning on doing that with Mutt, and they fucked that up.
Yeah, but they didn't do it. But they didn't do it. But this is what I mean. Like, there's no issue making another franchise from this woman that they introduce in Indiana Jones. What's the problem with that? Because I would say then, what's the problem with Creed? Like, do you have a problem with Creed or not?
The difference here is, unless she's some long lost daughter that we didn't know about, and again, it's just cramming the same thing we've already seen before.
No, I disagree because Creed is another person. He's not related to Rocky. He's just a character that was good, and then they spun it off into its own franchise. And the thing is that sinks or swims on its own benefit at that point. It's literally do or die. The franchise will either live or it'll die, and the money speaks volumes. So, I don't. Anyway, I don't want to get too off topic, but my point is that a lot of this will be media narrative and spin on top of what these obviously fucking stupid actors are saying, because they are stupid. Again, for all people watching.
And on top of that,
below prostitutes in the running of anything in society. They are
Here's
terrible.
The big difference. You had Michael B. Jordan coming in as the son of Apollo Creed. I can buy that. I don't want to sit there and watch Phoebe Waller-Bridge try to be Indiana Jones, no matter what character she's playing in it. I'm not saying she's going to be Indiana Jones, but I'm saying she's going to be running through the same kind of motions. That does not appeal to me whatsoever.
Why? What if she's a good character?
She hasn't had one yet. She is the reason I hate Solo. Like, I've tried watching it twice. I quit the moment she comes in the movie.
I get it, but what I'm saying is, if she's a good character and they do it, what would be the issue at that point? Because if it's like
they got
for like with
a
Creed,
huge, like I said, they already tried it with Shia. Nobody bought into that, right?
yeah, but
Like
that's,
again,
also that movie was garbage, man.
and I'm not
Come
disagreeing there.
There was
and
there was a lot more reasons why that.
No,
failed
I know.
than
I'm not
Shia.
disagreeing there, but let's be real. That was a non-starter, and even if they try to do the same thing here, I just don't see where they're going with this. With Apollo, having a son, I could see where they can go with that.
Well,
I don't see this being anything
Well,
other than whammies that are going to be
Well, it's
taking over the
all in
Indiana
the
Jones
execution,
franchise.
but it's going to sink and swim on its own merits right away.
That's-
But anyway, I also agree
Off
that
topic.
it's off topic and it's completely exaggerated. And also,
Well, it will lead into another topic here we got later.
yeah, just to continue from the point that you were making in terms of Dune, to take it back to that. Yeah, actors will do anything because that's literally their job. But in this case, it's not just that the actors are stupid. They're obviously prepped in advance of exactly what to say, because this is part of the movie's marketing campaign. It's not like the people from the film say, you go out there in front of that camera and you say whatever you want. This is about you. No, this is about the movie. You're going to say what we tell you to say because we want this narrative out there. And in the case of Dune, it's that we don't want this white savior narrative out there. So you're going to go out there and talk about how incredibly virtuous we are and how nasty everyone else in society is, but we're really changing things and doing better. And that's the narrative we're going to put out there, so the Twitterati doesn't point out white savior and take the movie down. Because they would not be above that. Because Warner is a studio that has shown before that they're not protected. They're not shielded by the
not just that, by the
critics.
Stupid. They'll look at money and go, no, I don't need that. Like, look at the whole Snyder situation. I mean, that motherfucker is flying off the shelves. They can't keep it on the shelves. They have proven that they're trying to keep it down. They left the freaking trailer unlisted, and it's still getting hit like crazy.
Yeah. But anyway,
no, they're stupid.
But I think that these are different people making different decisions.
No,
like,
I get you there.
The marketing department, but yeah.
Going back to box office predictions and things like that, there is still a strong possibility that this movie will be released in China. There is still a strong possibility because Legendary is part owned by Chinese firms, and if it does get its Chinese release date, that'll be amazing for June. That'll be epic. Because I think they will lap this up. Oh no, I think they will kill it.
This is going to do amazing everywhere.
That's where I'm thinking people are like, again, I could be very wrong. I mean, unfortunately, we live in a period where we're never going to be able to see what the actual numbers on this could have been. But this is what I've been saying for like the last, half year, almost year now, is that like I think people are underestimating this, and I have nothing to go on with. Like Andre will tell you, I've never been a huge Dune fan. The most I got into it is when I had to basically force myself into the world to edit his retrospective, and just coming from that perspective as a new fan, I guess you could call it. I feel like there's this buzz around this movie that I don't normally see around other films like this. It could just be me. I could be wrong, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to do very well. I genuinely do.
Yeah, I hope it will. I hope it will do amazing. And speaking of amazing, we have another amazing guest joining us. Recently monetized. Welcome, Valliant Renegade. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Well, doing excellent, especially now. How are you?
One of our numbers, man.
The aftermath of Ida and everything.
Hang on one second. I'm having some audio issues. My headphones decided to pick up something else. Let me switch off one thing real quick.
No problem.
Yeah,
While you're doing that, I just want to say hello to Quarter Black Garrett, who's in the chat. How you doing, buddy?
Hey. If you want to join us, I'm sure we can send you a link as well. And in the meantime, He's Riley,
busy. He has a real job.
Yeah. John Riley, he also had a question for Andre. Will teen girls dig Timothy? Yeah, he takes.
I think we already kind of touched on that. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the teen girls will dig him. And Pat S, who's also a new member, welcome. He also sent a super chat saying, "Proud to be a new member." Mexican Iron Man sent me. Mike is the best, isn't he? So we're going to do our best to make sure that you will not regret his recommendation. And yeah, Valliant, how are things and getting over Ida?
Yeah, for the most part, things at the house are back to normal, which is nice. Electricity came on about a week after, and then about a week after that, I finally got internet back at the house last weekend. Unfortunately, my office does not have internet. I had to, Tom shot me the link right around 11 o'clock, my time, Central, in the U.S., and I had to sit there before I left. I'm like, great, it's September 15th. I've got to actually do payroll, and I have to do it with a bunch of paper checks today because I can't do direct deposit. I can't do anything from the office. It's a pain in the butt. So anyway, yeah, it's slowly but surely getting there, and we have another tropical system that's kind of lingering over us this week, dumping a bunch of rain yesterday and today. So that's effectively keeping the crews from getting out there and finishing their repairs. So it might be another 5 days to a week before I see internet back over there. So we'll see. But on to better stuff. Let's talk Dune.
Yeah, let's do that. And speaking of that, also joining us, like when it rains, it pours. We also have our good friend Cultured Casino joining us. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I was late. Had some more things to do, but I do want to talk more Dune.
Yeah, I seem to get that there's some kind of interest in the panel for Dune. That's weird.
Slightly,
I don't quite understand why. But yeah, I mean, haven't you seen it? It's out already. So I saw it, so why didn't you? But anyway, yeah.
Because I'm not in Norway. Yeah. I wish I was right now. You got an extra room?
Flexing, that's why.
Actually, I do, but you have to get here first. So good luck with that.
Yeah, they won't let me in, I'm sure.
Yeah, but yeah, we were talking about the box office predictions for the few international territories.
So actually, your guys' timing is pretty good since you're kind of our numbers guys.
Exactly, and as we covered with Mr. H, it looks set to earn 20 to 25 million this weekend in the very few select markets it will be opening in. And we think that sounds pretty good, don't we, Mr. H?
I think that. I genuinely think that's pretty good. Like, France has terrible, shitty rules at the moment, along with... I'm fairly certain Italy still has them, and so does Spain. Germany, I'm not so sure what they're up to at the moment, but those are pretty big markets. Those are the biggest markets out of the 24, and the rest of the 24 are like nothing to of note. Like, again, Norway is not a market really. I mean, it is a market, but it's not a market.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It barely blips on any.
Yeah, we admit it freely, and we're
yeah. So I think 20.
We don't even mask up or anything. So yeah.
Yeah, I think mid-20s is fantastic. Yeah.
What do you gentlemen think about the numbers so far, these estimates, if they hold true?
Based on the markets it was released in, like Mr. H just said, I mean, 20 hitting 25 million, that's encouraging. This thing is going to snowball as it rolls into the United States, I think. I think this is a really good plan. It's similar to what Fast 9 kind of did with its international release before coming to the States. The fact that this is going to be one of those things everybody's going to talk about, that you have to see it on a big screen. I mean, this is going to build buzz. It's going to keep people away from HBO Max because there's going to be impressive numbers coming out of all these international markets. So here in the States, I think it's going to do better than even I originally projected. I think it's globally. I think this thing it's going to make money, which will actually be nice. So maybe we will get the second film. I'm hoping.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably disagree with that, though, and I think Andre may disagree with that as well. There's a big difference between getting a good box office and making money. This has to make a lot of money to go into profit, and I think it's going to struggle to do that. I still think it's going to do well, but I think it's going to really struggle to make any amount of profit.
You know what I think? I think they are already prepped for the fact that they will never see a return on this investment. Yeah. I think that they are already mentalized. They have already written it off, that this is force majeure. The marketplace where this movie could profit simply doesn't exist. And this is a similar situation for quite a few movies that were scaled and budgeted, assuming that they were going to make like $1 billion, $1.5 billion at the box office. And that simply isn't feasible. It can do really well for the situation, but there's no way it can do what it was projected to do at the time when it was greenlit and the budget was allocated. And we've already heard that that Warner and at least someone are braced for that. And the rumor has it that if it performs exceedingly well on HBO Max, they're going to see that the interest is there. We're going to consider what happened before, sunk cost. It's unfair to expect the movie to perform in a marketplace that simply isn't what it once was. So that's sunk costs, and we're going to move on and scale the next one better and try to make money there.
So, but then let me just be clear. So we're saying this film, or in your opinion, you don't think this is going to make over $550 million globally?
Oh, I'm sure it can make 550 million globally, but I don't think that that's going to be enough to break even.
Yeah,
I think that this movie is going to have a significantly higher break-even point. I think the break-even point is going to be like 800 million, 900 million. I do not think there's any way it can be profitable, this movie right here. But it can be a very expensive proof of concept. They have like the option. Do we consider the entire thing a waste? Or do we consider that we have now done the basics, we have built the interest, and if we now continue using the Mando tech rather than shooting on sets, we can make much, much cheaper sequels. We can do a whole franchise, and we can make our money back that way.
So you think they will switch to stagecraft then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's a viable possibility, having seen it, though? To shift there and actually have it look the same?
I think that they can, in a sense, yeah, because it's just like
interesting.
They can't make it look the same. That is absolutely no way. But they can give it a slightly different tonal change because it's now a very, very different kind of story. Because you had like the epic build-up, but the next part of the story doesn't have to be nearly as epic. I mean, that's mostly like fighting in the sands on sets that already have been built. That can be done a hell of a lot cheaper.
But then I wonder if they would simply go back to Budapest anyway, because that would still be cheap. Like it's not a very expensive place to film, and if they have already built them and they managed to put them in storage, then surely, if they're not going to be doing anywhere near as epic, surely that would still be a viable option rather than having to use Mando tech, which is still really expensive, actually.
Yeah.
It's cheap to a degree, but surely if it's just fighting in the sand, you still just go back to Budapest on the pre-made sets.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm speculating
exactly what they're going to do, but I would say that in my estimate, that's the one way that they can still make profit here is consider the whole thing a very expensive sunk costs. Now it's the cost of business just to get started. Now they can consider, is that whole thing wasted, or do we try to salvage something here going forward and then scaling it for the realities of the current marketplace?
Yeah, I could actually see that working out, Andre. I could see them, rolling into the second film, scaling back the way they're doing it. But I again, I mean, as Mr. H says, I think they could still do some stuff in Budapest and save, some money there. I think that actually creates the opportunity for HBO Max, Warner Media, whatever they're going to end up being with Discovery. I think it creates an opportunity for a great television series.
Absolutely. Multiple great television series.
Yeah.
Because the Dune universe is so huge. We know that they want to do like the 3 movies. They're doing the Bene Gesserit series. But if all of that is successful, why stop there?
Yeah.
When there is so much to mine. Now, I know that most hardcore fans, they only consider the books by Frank Herbert, and that is fair. But if you look into the extended mythology by Brian Herbert and what's his face, like Kevin J. Anderson, some of those books, the ones that I have read at least, no, they are not nearly up there with Frank Herbert, but they do expand on the mythology. and they are detailed enough. Like, for instance, the whole Machine Crusade. I mean, that's an epic 10-season Game of Thrones-like series right there.
Mm.
I mean, you could even have Dumb and Dumber be showrunners because it's laid out so detailed in the books. And it would play extremely well on TV. I mean, you could do so many things with that. It's such a huge universe. I mean, the story takes place over, 30,000 years, all told?
Mm.
So I think it would be really stupid of them to just see, now the market changed. We didn't earn our money back like we were never going to do, so we're just going to end it here, rather than see that, let's use this as an investment, and we'll earn our money back building the next big thing here, because they can totally do that.
Well, a couple of things on the outlays for this, where y'all started in terms of the worldwide box office, success or fail. Definitely. I mean, look, if you look at the budget, I know the stated budgets versus reality of what they spend are often two different things, right? So the stated budget on this was about 170 million, I believe.
Yep.
I think on a movie like this, especially with its worldwide appeal, I think you could easily go up to as high as 2x on that number in terms of once you factor in marketing budget. So if they spent $160 million on this movie, they probably would have dropped another 100 to 150 million easy worldwide marketing budget, because these kind of things.
That's without a shadow of a doubt. They've released very much, like a lot of marketing material. Even like Warner Brothers Thailand had some marketing material very specifically for that YouTube channel, which didn't really appear on anything else. They've done a lot of marketing material for this, which would have been expensive.
Definitely.
So that's a given that it would be double.
Oh yeah, and if you put the all-in cost right there at around let's call it 300 million to 325 million, I think a reasonable assumption, if we just do a 50% worldwide average take, putting us around 600 to 650 million as a break-even point, I think is a reasonable assumption here. I don't know if it'd be as high as 800, Andre, even if they had extra carrying costs. I mean,
that's just a number that I took out of the air. Mm-hmm. But what I think is, I think the break-even point is going to be so high that they're going to struggle to reach that, even in the best of cases. I
think this movie will get to 600 million globally. That's my gut.
Yeah, and I was a little higher than that at 625, but it's just it again. I mean, I'm trying to think if I think all in, I think it breaks even. I think it even ekes out a little bit on the top. But
here's the other thing, though, too, for everybody out there watching to bear in mind. And this is kind of a primer. This is actually in the second part, Andre and Tom and Culture. You've probably seen this one. That part one of the whole box office retrospective. We covered that Deloitte report. I put that one out Tuesday. Part two, I'm probably going to go out tomorrow, and it's going to actually cover a lot of the information in terms of what 2021 is. And of course, you guys know this well. Maybe some of the audience don't, but just to remind everybody, Warner Media, Jason Kilar, early this year, they made a rather radical business decision. They came out point blank, and it's like, look, our entire 21 slate is going to go day and date release on HBO Max. Now, why did they do that? Now, we can say that they thought that early on they were going to lose some box office, or they wasn't going to get there. They wanted to be able to get people in because they weren't going to go to the theaters or whatever. But then we saw Godzilla versus Kong. There was a strong desire to go, even with day and date release. The whole idea being is that Warner Media, their intention, or Kilar's intention, of course, was to try to increase the amount of subs that they would get over normal times for this year. And they have had good, slow, steady growth. And I think, Tom, you and I talked about this on Mead one night. Might have been a little while ago, but I said, if you look at HBO Max, if you look at the subscriber growth they have one of the best average revenue per users in the game at just shy of $12 per user, $11.90 according to the last quarterly report. Okay, great ARPUs. Second only to Netflix, as a matter of fact. But the thing is that they've been growing steadily each quarter this year of about 2 to 2.2 million subs. I think a bellwether for them is going to be, if this Dune movie, if people decide to watch this on HBO Max, what Warner Media is looking for, what HBO Max is looking for, is an abnormal quarter when these big movies like Dune hit, to where instead of 2 or 2.2 million, maybe they're going to see 2.5, 3 million subs in that same quarter period that they can try to attribute to some of this. Now, they've already said that they're going to go back to theatrical releases 2022, or at least with a 45-day exclusive window. And I think part of the reason they did this rollout in terms of the international markets, was they're rolling it out in the international markets 45 days before it hits domestically, which is where HBO Max is. You have US, you have Canada, you have Latin America. That's HBO Max's hub. They're really not anywhere else yet. They're getting there. But if they can build up a significant enough, head of steam here to where by the time it gets to the US, they have $200-300 million, I think, easily in the bank.
Yeah.
I think that's also, and I would be willing to bet, because theatrical contracts for revenue sharing are not what they were in 2019.
No.
Nobody's giving HBO Max 75% of the first 17 days of a theater run in a US theater right now when they're dropping it for free on HBO Max. But I bet you if there's something in those contracts with these theaters that's performance based, where, hey, if this thing rolls into the US and we've got $300 million in the bank, that performance, maybe they get a little bit more. Maybe they get an extra 5% at the box office here domestically. There's all kind of weird things going on this year, because you can't use that financial business history up through 2019 to figure out what these theaters and these revenue sharing agreements are this year, because it's a mess. Warner's doing stuff different than Disney's doing stuff different than Universal, Paramount, so on and so forth. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Culture. You look like you're about to blow.
No. I was just going to say, I was feeding in what you're saying. If the story that I've shared here is HBO is leaving Amazon Prime. So they're going to take a subscriber hit as of today. They're going to start taking a subscriber hit because you won't be able to subscribe through Amazon anymore. This story broke at 4 this morning. Right. And so that they're going to take a subscriber hit. They absolutely need to rebuild those subs or get interest back in the platform from those that were going through the Amazon system, Amazon Prime, to actually subscribe to.
Well, they'll try to get those people to migrate over, but I mean, most of them probably automatically will, I would bet. That their idea obviously is we don't want to have to pay Amazon Prime 20% anymore. Every time somebody subscribes to HBO Max or Amazon Prime or Apple TV, they got to cough up, and that's why the ARPUs are $12 instead of the $15.
Exactly.
Like
well, they're better at it. I mean, their ARPUs are much higher than what's going on with Disney or anybody else. But they're also stacking their subscriber base with North America, which is smart. I mean, they only recently launched elsewhere, and they're keeping their price point quite high. So, but this morning when this broke, I was like, ooh, this could be a problem, because I think they will take a hit. I just don't know how many subs they're going to lose. So,
I don't know. I mean, I think you're still paying the same price through Amazon that you are directly. I mean, they have the $10 a month tier now with ads, and then they still have the traditional $15 premium no ads version.
Yeah. No,
so whilst you were all talking, I actually did a bit of research. I actually think you're all wrong. I don't think this will make anywhere near sort of $600-700 million at all. So Fast and Furious 9, which was released in China, only took $710 million worldwide. The trailer for Fast 9 hit 53 million views. The trailer for Dune has only hit 32 million views, and it doesn't have a Chinese release date yet. It's likely to get one because it is part owned by Tencent. Legendary is part owned by, I think it's Tencent off the top of my head.
Actually, Legendary is owned outright by Wanda Group.
Oh yeah, sorry, Wanda Group.
The other one, yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't see it having the same appeal on a broader scale as what Fast 9 did. Sadly, so no, I actually think you're both wrong. Sorry,
we may be. It's a good
piss on your parade there, but I mean, looking at the numbers, Fast 9 took 710 million or something like that. Yeah, so $710.9 million, 53 million views on its trailer. I mean, that is insane. There was a lot of buzz for it, admittedly, because I mean it's a franchise, but that's the point. It's a franchise, and that's not, who gives a shit about the franchise? Whether it's quality or not, it still makes loads and loads of money.
Oh yeah.
No, it's not going to hit. It's not going to hit anywhere near 700 million. I think it will struggle to hit 500. Actually, sadly.
You may be totally right, Mr. H. And like I said, to me, it was a gut feeling because when I just see this, I see a movie that, and I know a lot of people, it's more popular in European countries than probably here in the States still. I think it's going to do a tremendous international box office. I think this movie, once it actually gets out there and people start seeing it, it feels to me like it's one of those that's going to build a lot of good buzz, word of mouth. I think it will probably have one of the best chances of any movie this year to grow really good legs.
I hope so.
The problem you have, though, is that it's going to be on HBO Max day and date, which means it's going to automatically be on the piracy site, which means...
Yeah. I think it will actually struggle to hit $500 million. I think
it's going to be Godzilla versus Kong all over again. That's my fear.
I wanted to do well, but
Well, think about it. Godzilla versus Kong did almost $500 million. right?
440
460,
something.
470, yeah, something like that.
But
460,
that movie,
470.
I think, is going to have much, much wider appeal than Dune. Because one of the things that I think after having seen it, I think that the people that are going to love this movie, they're really, really going to love it. But I don't see it having that massive appeal that's needed to get to those huge numbers. Dune is a much more sophisticated, as in challenging to fully get a hold of property. It doesn't have that same kind of 4-quadrant appeal as many other properties. I mean, it's not nearly as easily accessible as Lord of the Rings. It's not as colorful as those other things.
And you do need to factor in the 2.5 hours runtime, because that also diminishes the length, the amount of showings that can be shown.
You can add that to all the things that I think limit the commercial potential of it. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with the movie itself per se. I'm just saying
neither am I. I think
this ain't going to have that wide commercial appeal. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
Well, here's where I think you may be wrong.
Dune is inherently niche.
I think the problem is they've always, like, going back to the Lynch Dune, right? Like, the main issue with that is I feel like they went into that movie, or at least the expectation of that was they were trying to make another Star Wars, right? They tried to aim it towards kids. They had a toy line. It's a PG-13 fucking movie. Actually, it was one of the first PG-13 movies. And there's no way that this is a kid's property, right? But what you have now here with this version, I feel, and I could be wrong, and it could be one of those movies that just falls like a dud. But I feel, like I said before, that it has something to it that I feel an energy off it, that at least around the US, to where even though where people don't know exactly what it is, because we had the same thing with Lord of the Rings. A lot of the people who went to Lord of the Rings, or when it became the siege, they had no fucking clue what Lord of the Rings was. Most people in the US, their exposure to Lord of the Rings was the Rankin and Bass Hobbit cartoon, and that was it. Right? Most people had never read the books. If anything, they'd read the Hobbit book, and that was it, because some schools used to do it for, early reading programs. But other than that, the Lord of the Rings was not like one of those things that everybody was forced to read in school or anything like that. So it didn't have like this mass, audience appeal to it going into it. It was a big gamble for them then to do Lord of the Rings. And I see them going at it with the same attack here when it comes to Dune. So I feel like, maybe we don't have that potential now financially, but it could hit between that YA group, the adult group, and the classic sci-fi group, that kind of number and appeal you got from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, this is a hard one to predict, but I like I said, and I'll be happy to say that I'm being kind of Pollyannish about this as a big fan of Dune, but I think it could get there. I really do. And, one of the things I was looking at, and I just had to pull this up to remind myself of the numbers. So a couple of days ago on Deadline, they had some analyst data come out talking about the 2021 box office, where it is now, stands currently internationally ex-China, and where they think it's going to wind up for the year. So I'm just going to look at the U.S. number, and I'm just reading this right from the article. As of September 11th, Gower Street research analyst estimates the international box office, excluding China, stands at $5.22 billion. Domestic box office here in the U.S., $2.31 billion. Now, in the same research report, they expect the total domestic box office by end of year to reach $4.5 billion. So basically, this analyst firm expects the domestic U.S. box office to double, basically, from where it is now, or at least when this was published on September 11th, from that point to the end of the year. So they're obviously expecting what movies we have coming. And when we look at, of course, next is James Bond, and then you're going to have Dune, then you're going to have Ghostbusters. I think that's still on the slate. And then Venom is there. That's right. And then, of course, Spider-Man. Yeah, the last one. So they're expecting those 5 big tentpole pieces to effectively, almost on their own, because there's really not much else outside of that. Well, maybe you throw the Eternals in there, but that's another conversation. But they're expecting those few movies to go ahead and push the box office to almost double the financial position it was in 4 days ago. So that kind of suggests, and there's similar numbers in the ex-China and that means not, everything international excluding China. They're expecting similar numbers there too. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm looking at this Dune thing. And I'm thinking that, as we're pushing into the latter part of this year and these grandiose productions are really coming out, and there seems to be more buzz, especially the Spider-Man, which is just amazing. What that trailer did in the first 24 hours, 353 million hits worldwide, more than Endgame. I think there's a lot of energy moving into this fourth quarter in the year. So it's going to be interesting.
Well, and there's, some people are agreeing with me in the chat, and some people are bringing up, Lord of the Rings was well known. Yeah, it was well known when it came out, but you got to remember, Lord of the Rings didn't have nearly as much prior to that as Dune did. Dune had a Lynch film already, and the sci-fi series, which Lord of the Rings, when that film came out, all they had was The Hobbit, the Bakshi film, which failed at the box office, and then the other Rankin and Bass, Return of the King, which didn't do nearly as well as The Hobbit. So, like, there's arguably more people who probably know who Dune is going into this than Lord of the Rings, maybe.
Yeah, those old rotoscope cartoons that they had, I remember.
Well, that's my point, is we actually have like the Lynch Dune and the sci-fi Dune already. That's kind of, there's more of a mass audience for those kind of things than hardly anybody knows The Hobbit anymore, the old cartoon. Like that's been lost in time. Yeah. And same thing with the Bakshi film is just finally starting to get some love. And that's just from a lot of the really hardcore Lord of the Rings fans mainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if you mentioned this, but the film Dune did get through Chinese censorship. So in Legendary,
we mentioned it just before you got.
Yes, and we also had Natasha brought it up in the private chat here. So thanks, Natasha, that Dune will be getting a Chinese release. Yeah. So that's going to help a bit.
It's just not on the calendar yet, as far as we know.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. The CEO was talking about it a couple days ago.
I think the bottom line of this is this is the one time where I feel like HBO should have listened to Legendary and been like, this is the cutoff. From here on out, we're not going to release any more day and date movies unless they're specifically small titles or whatever. Because at this point, you're going to kill yourself.
They already stroked a check to Legendary for Godzilla versus Kong for $225 million.
And how many times have we said that movie would have been $1 billion movie in the normal world, especially if it hadn't been on HBO Max? If it hadn't been on HBO Max, that movie would have crossed $600 billion right there back in March when they only had 3,000 screens and everything, on the West Coast was still shut down. So that's why I kind of have a little faith about Dune, and I'm with you, and you and I have said this for months. This was a mistake putting this day and date on HBO Max. I understand the business strategy that Warner is trying to engage in with getting more subscribers in, but they could have made so much more money with this just sticking with a traditional theatrical release. And we have no idea what the buyout price. I haven't seen it anywhere. What the buyout price for it was way more than $225. I can tell you that.
Well, so there was a statement actually, which was there was a quote which was taken in an article to do with Black Widow and the amount that Warner Brothers has paid out additionally for deals. It wasn't actually that much. It was only in the region of $200 million or something like that. But we don't know whether that's the stars and producers or directors or for
that pretty much covers the production cost though.
Well, but that was literally for everything they said for the whole year, which is why it was so laughable that. Scarlett Johansson wanted an additional $80 million, basically. It's like, how the fuck are you going to get that, you dipshit? But yeah, so that's the only figures that have been actually officially, semi-officially released anyway. So I don't know on top of that whether there's any, the amount that would have been given. Because they would have had to have purchased Dune as well, I'm sure.
Right. And not to switch gears, but speaking of release, since you have to go here soon, Mr. H, you just dropped a video earlier on the early reactions to Venom because there was a screening or a couple screenings, I should say. Not to give away too much of your video, so people go over and check it out. But what's the buzz on Venom, though, otherwise going around?
Well, I was actually going to have a friend that was actually going to watch it. So they say that it was a fan event, but there was also reviewers and critics going. Which is slightly misleading because then people only think that it's fans and they go, well, I'm not going to listen to them or they're biased, etc. Like there was actual reviewers going, which they should have led with as well. But that was in Leicester Square in London last night, and the general buzz is really what you sort of expected it to be. Quite popular, very positive. Much, a lot of people going, yeah, it's really good, but it's very much from the perspective of, well, if you like the first one, you'll like the second one. If you didn't like the first one, you're not. I mean, clearly you're not going to like the second one, because if you didn't like the first one, you didn't like it because it wasn't R-rated and it was PG or PG-13, and it was too jokey and comedic and things like that. They're leaning heavily into that. Interesting. A lot of the comments were about the pacing. So they actually say the pacing is erratic, like balls to the wall, but as a positive, because it directly reflects the characterizations of the leading character, Venom and Carnage, in the movie, and that then in turn sort of accentuates the pace, and it works nicely, which is an interesting way of looking at it, because normally you'd say, well, the pace is too quick, and you'd go, well, that's bad, it's chaotic. But if it complements the characters and if it's a well-written story, then it can be balls to the wall from the start to the finish, and it can be quite enjoyable as a result of it. So that seems to be the general census from people. A lot of people saying it's great, but they obviously like the first one. So if you don't like the first one, you're not going to like the second. There's some interesting comments which stemmed from Andy Serkis's interview a few weeks back, where he said that it's a love story. Not a romantic love story, but a love story between Eddie and Venom, and about how you can't live without one another or can't live with them. And so there's an interesting sort of dynamic there, like an old married couple, which I think can play again. It's building on that comedic element from the first one. So yeah, it seems good, but if you didn't like the first one, you're not going to like the second. It seems to be the general census anyway.
There you go. Well, so check out Mr. H's video on that, and I'm sure he'll have some more on that soon. And I correct myself; it was just the one screening, I guess. I thought there was multiple ones.
Yeah, no, it's just so they just set them up at Cineworld in Leicester Square.
Yeah,
I've been there to some screenings before. It's a great venue for screenings, and the studio's always hire it out. Like it's a pretty good cinema there, to be honest. I think even Andre's been there, if I remember.
Yeah, I have. I was about to say that one is a really good one. So I've been to that one, and I've been to Odeon, and that's where I saw Dread on its premiere day back in the day. Nice. And what's the third one that's there? Because you have like 3 of them right there in Leicester Square.
So you've got the Cineworld when you look sort of the north of Leicester Square, I guess. It's kind of how, at the top of the square. Yeah. I think it's the old Odeon. It's the old Odeon, which is to the right-hand side, if I remember rightly. I don't know what the third one is, actually. Or even if it's there anymore. I can't remember.
I regrettably haven't been in London for a while, but whenever I'm there, I tend to end up in Leicester Square and Forbidden Planet and stuff like that. So, yeah.
It's good place to go. Very good place to go.
Yeah, and the Five Guys burger there is also pretty awesome. It's really close to Leicester Square. I mean, there's
love a Five Guys
burgers on the planet.
We've got those here too. They're great. I have one question for you, Mr. H, before you have to run.
Yes. Go on.
I have fallen behind in the last few weeks with everything we've had going on with car nonsense, which I enjoy. And I want to know, how is the GTR? The last thing I think I watched, you were working on the truck. Did you? I don't know what the last thing I saw on the GTR was.
Are you talking about the R32 GTR or the R33 GTR?
I didn't realize you had 2 on there. Boy, I am behind.
So Nick actually purchased a complete shell, which is an R33 GTR.
Okay.
So you're obviously talking about the R32. So the R32, the latest on the R32 is that it's essentially running fine. Like the turbos are fine. Like it's just running, but it's going to be retired soon for the winter, basically. So that's gone now, and then my truck is gone as well. That's over at was over at the garage, just getting its restoration job, basically, and all the kind of custom work. I
think I saw some of that the last time I watched the video. You were kind of starting on that, it looked like.
Yeah, well, so now it's out of my hands now. It's been there for like 2. This is its 3rd month, actually. This is its 3rd month away from me. And
that's about right. Then probably the last time I saw one was a couple months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot has happened. So I've got a Nissan Pulsar GTI-R at the moment as well. I don't know if you saw that. That's a little rally car.
I think I did. Yeah. I think I did see that one. So
yeah, so that's,
for all the gearheads out there in the chat, I mean, it's a fun channel, man. That's Mr. H's second channel, Car Nonsense. Go check it out.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun. Like I just have fun on it. But the Zed's coming back now. That's going to be in the next few videos, probably from Friday onwards.
Okay, we got a Z coming. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's my daily driver is the 370Z.
Okay. Okay. I think I have seen that one before on your videos.
Yeah, I don't really do many videos with it because it's an old car to me. Like I've had that for nearly about 4 years or something like that. So I don't actually appreciate it as much as I should, which is a massive shame. But yeah, so that's going to be coming back because I need to do service, spark plugs. I need to do all the brakes and pads and rotors and all that kind of garbage. But yeah, so watch it then because you'll see this absolute wreck of a car. And Nick plans to do a full. I mean, it's not mine, but it's Nick's. He plans to do a complete restoration on it. So there's a good few videos on that now, quite long as well. Like some of them are like 40 minutes long. So if you like long, just long sort of chit chatty videos, they're on there. So
yeah. I watch those when it's fixing up cars. So I'll try to catch you on the next member stream too. We'll catch up about that.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I have to.
Thanks for coming, Mr. H.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Been a while, and also a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure to come back. Always happy to drop in. As and when I can. And just in advance, you said you're going to be talking about Hellraiser. I was the source that Dread Central used to break the news. Just as an FYI.
Real quick, if you have the time. What's going on with Hellraiser since you're the source? What's going on?
They're basically they're just filming, basically. And I didn't think it was much news to break, but apparently it was. Like everyone's reported on it. And I got... So I got it from my source. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll wait for some more info to come out because normally when they start filming, you get a few set photos and stuff. I was like, I just wait. Like I sit on quite a lot of stuff, and then I didn't report on it, and because I was waiting for stuff, and then I get an email from Dread Central, Josh, the editor in chief over there, because like we've communicated backwards and forwards about various things to corroborate things before, and he was like I'm hearing this. Can you just confirm it? I was like, yeah, that's 100% legit. Like. Absolutely 100% legit. And then bloody broke the news, and I'm like, son of a bitch. So I kind of missed the train on that one, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, they're just filming. Like this is the reboot. This is a remake movie.
Stuff all worked out, or
say that again?
Did they get all the rights stuff all worked out, or
so Clive Barker's got the rights back basically, and this is going to be dumped straight on Hulu.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, it is on Hulu, which like sucks. It's to be expected though. Yeah. It's to be expected because he has connections at Hulu. He's done all of his Books of Blood stuff through there, and yeah, that's it. Like it's to be expected.
Talk about it anyway because I've been thinking about doing something about a video about the rights to that and Friday the 13th.
It's well, I'll tell you what, it gets even more interesting with the rights to that because I know pretty high up people that are working on the TV series, what was supposed to be an HBO TV series, and that. Mate, that is a shit show. Like that is an absolute shit show. Like the stuff I can tell you about, like just as a brief, like as a quick exclusive, I guess. They apparently weren't aware that there was any lawsuit going on, and coincidentally, at exactly the same time that a lawsuit was going on, they get Clive Barker on board. And basically, because I probed, they're trying to bury it. They absolutely struck a deal with Clive to get him on board, so they didn't sue him. Absolutely, because they were like, "Nah, mate, that lawsuit was bollocks." And I was like, "Dude, like, here's the official lawsuit document. Why are you trying to tell me it's bogus? What are you doing?" And he's like, "No, they don't know what I'm talking about." I'm like, "They literally went to court. What are you talking about?" It was the weirdest thing. Very strange interaction.
Now, is this just the lawsuit for him to go back and get the rights back, or is this something completely? Is this because
that was the lawsuit for him to get the rights back to Hellraiser movies? I was like, this is the weirdest interaction because I basically just messaged him.
That's okay. That's what I was asking. Was it for the movies or just for the rights?
That was for the rights to the movies, but coincidentally, at exactly the same time, they signed Clive Barker on as executive producer for the TV series. And there's two people linked to both of them, which is Larry Lawrence Cuplin. I can't remember the exact name. And they're on both of them. That same individual is on both of them. That individual was actually the defendant who was arguing against the rights going back to Clive on the movie, but he's the executive producer on board the series. So you fucking tell me that they're not tied. Come on.
So it's kind of like
Obviously.
the James Cameron Terminator deal in a way it ended up.
Obviously, like honestly, so but they tried to bury it. It was the most ridiculous.
Yeah, I'll have to
interaction
talk to you
I've ever
about
had.
that because I've been thinking about a video about that.
Yeah,
But,
you'll have a good time with it. It was very
Mr. Tickle
strange.
Trunk sent in a Canadian $5 super chat and said, "Did Jasper make a cameo?" Actually, he did earlier on.
Yeah,
not that we
I saw
don't
him back there on
appreciate
the
Mr.
sofa.
H, but
chilling
Jasper.
out. Jasper's the real legend of my channel. So if you want more Jasper, watch my videos and
Plenty
he
of
pops up
Jasper,
occasionally.
yeah.
And that's Mr. H's next and third YouTube channel will be the Jasper Show.
Jasper the Border Terrier. That's it. I've got to make it. So anyway, I need to depart. I need to
Thank
get
you
some
so much,
food.
sir.
But thank you so much. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks for
Good
joining
to see
us.
you.
Take care.
And with that, before we get into some of the other news we got this morning, why don't we grab some super chats? You guys have been so patient with us, so we appreciate it.
Yes,
so go ahead and get
indeed.
started on those, Andre.
Yeah, let's going to go back to the very beginning here because we have a couple of classics. First off today, we had saying, "Hi, gents." Hello, everyone. And SDR Red Wolf says, "Hulk smash like button." But you should too. Yes, indeed, you should. You absolutely should.
And don't kick stuff.
Yeah. And then we have, let's see. Then we have a Wintrell. Sorry we couldn't get this one before, but he said, "Mr. H, Midnight's Edge just got better. He is the man." And shout out to Jasper. Dash D's says, "Rest in peace, Norm MacDonald. When SNL was funny and comedy wasn't offensive." So yes, indeed, rest in peace. And we spoke about him much on Midnight's Edge After Dark yesterday. So go check out that stream.
That was a sad bit of news we heard yesterday and took everybody kind of by surprise. So yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah. And Stephen Otten said for $5, "Hail Andre, Tom, Mr. H Reviews, Wrenches, and Chat. Listening in from the road today. Hoping there's some good news today. We could use it."
Well,
and
it sounds like Dune and Venom 2 might be good. So hey.
Yeah, exactly. And then Ram Bam 3000 says for £5, "Conan, Bran McMahon, and others aren't in the same world, but on the same timeline." Yeah, that's kind of like what I meant. They're like in the same continuity. And that's kind of like the point with it. And Dash Attack says for $5, "Going to review He-Man CGI on the channel, episode by episode, followed by season 1 recap. I hope it's fun. Going to see Malignant this Friday in theaters." Cool, I look forward to seeing that one myself.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can see it on HBO Max too.
Yeah, and yeah, you can. And
I wouldn't look forward to it, Andre. I've heard some pretty shitty things.
Oh, I've heard some pretty good things. Like it's absolutely ball to the walls. So yeah. And Callum Lyle says, "SJW wokes and activists can't read books." No, indeed they can't. That's for certain. And Gran Wasu 42 sent us pear-shaped guy super sticker. And then let's see. New Soft 75 says for 50 Swedish krona, "Listen, people, just watched it today. Dune is exactly 0% woke. Don't listen to marketing and press junkets."
There you go.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been saying as well. And Professor Gray wonders, will they spend the same amount of money on the next film, or will reality catch up with it? And they try to actually make money next time. And yeah, I'm inclined to believe the latter. What do you guys think? Don't all talk at once.
Sorry, I was editing the video. Then we got Valliant letting dogs out. And I think Culture's on putting a dog out as well. So
Well, brilliant stuff. Well, then moving
Sorry.
on then.
Sorry about that. What was the question?
We already answered it. That they're going to have to adjust the budget for the next movie if there is one.
Well, and another thing going off of what you and Mr. H were kind of talking about earlier, I wonder if they did save a lot of stuff. I wonder if they're going to be able to amortize some of this. I mean, I know Denny's been out talking about the sequel quite a bit here the last couple days. I hope it I really got. I still wish that at the last minute Warner would get cold feet and just decide not to release it day and date on HBO Max and let this movie have a chance. I really do, but I do think we'll get a sequel. I guess the question will be is how popular this version is. I think Andre's right on the whole. Depending on how much it pushes HBO Max, I think we'll determine that. But then again, I don't know how much Legendary has to rely on HBO Max or Warner Brothers if they want to make a sequel either.
Well,
because I know they haven't been too happy with Warner, and they've been moving around quite a bit and making a lot of deals with other companies.
Well, according to reports, Legendary they foot 75% of the
That's
bill.
what Mr. H was saying. Yes.
Yeah. $165 million is nothing to sneeze at. And again, the Chinese want to make profit. So I'm sorry, but
and here's another thing, Andre, that I forgot to mention earlier. They were selling out of the 4K editions of Dune everywhere. Part of it might be supply issues, but they haven't been able to keep them in stock. No place.
Such a wasted opportunity.
I
that
know,
they just couldn't create the alternate edition reduction.
The reason I brought it up is it does show there is some interest in this franchise. Like I was trying to say. The same thing with Star Trek. They've been having trouble keeping that fucker in stock. That's why I got to go drive an hour to get mine. Anyway, Culture, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. You were making a point.
Oh, no. Obviously, if Mr. H had already visited upon the subject, it's just they don't like the new modern Hollywood that doesn't care about profit. They actually, Legendary, Wanda Group, China, they want money. They really do. They're in the midst of a financial catastrophe at the moment as their stock market starts to melt down. But it just, they're in the position where they like profits. And so I still think there might be a chance that there could end up being a lawsuit, by Legendary if because of
Can they though? If they already made a deal, that's the thing.
I don't know. And again, it's a shame Mr. H is gone, and I haven't had time to look it up, but who knows? If they've written off that much money, $200 million or HBO's written $200 million worth of checks.
Maybe HBO's giving them all the box office.
Oh my gosh, that would be terrible.
Look at it though. Like, let's look at it from their point of view.
Yeah.
They pay off X amount for the production costs. They get to use it as a loss leader for HBO Max, and they're like, as a consolatory prize, you get to keep whatever you make at the box office. Yeah, I doubt that's the case, but I'm just saying, or they took a lower percentage, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and obviously, Legendary fought really hard to get it through the censorship in China to get the film released. So I had no idea, as we said earlier, what the release date would be, but even though that'll make the gross look very good, you only get 25% of whatever you make in China at best. So I don't know.
What I'm saying. Maybe their original deal was 25-75 with Warner. Maybe Warner gave them an extra 10-15%.
Maybe.
And yeah, Ironcaster, there is still some interest in Star Trek, believe it or not, even at the extremely high price point of around $90 for 4 fucking movies,
which I still have not gotten.
Is still selling out everywhere.
I'm still waiting on Amazon. They sent me an update today. Yeah. September 27th is now my new update.
I ordered that fucker the day it was announced, and I still haven't gotten mine released.
You and me both.
I got one at Best Buy, but I got to drive an hour to get it. They had a couple.
I can't find anything around here. Well, all of our stores can't get shipments still because.
Well, that's your problem. Yeah, unfortunately, where you're at right now, you're stuck in a shitty situation because of the weather. But even in areas where the weather's not a problem, they can't keep some bitches in stock. So. Shit. And I've had quite a few people message me about them who've gotten theirs. I'm like, you lucky bastards. But yes, there is plenty of interest still in Star Trek, classic Trek, that is. Not this whatever this stuff is now. But we got a couple more super chats to get through here. Next up, we've got, I don't know if these are in the right order or not, but I'm just going to read them in the order that Andre gave them to me. Lars Hansen, who sent in 100 Danish krona, it looks like. According to Grace Randolph, Black Widow has made $126 million US on Disney Plus box office. So Shang-Chi has to make a decent amount of money in theaters before beating Black Widow on revenue, and that's a question mark. Actually, I think so far it's doing pretty well. It's keeping pace with Black Widow. Am I not mistaken, Valiant?
In the box office, in the box office, it's pacing Black Widow fairly well. But I think what she was referring to is something that I had mentioned when I made the video about why I thought Shang-Chi was a fail, especially compared to Black Widow, was because when
the Disney Plus side,
I mean, Black Widow, to be fair, even though it was Disney Plus and not box office, it's still a concurrent primary release. So
exactly,
Shang-Chi did not have the Disney Plus. So my contention was that in order for Shang-Chi to really be a true success, we really had to see a substantial amount of that Disney Plus Premier Access dollars show up at the box office.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah.
And none of it did.
The thing is, like with Black Widow, the upside we brought it, or the other side we brought up, and I don't know if you agree with this point or not, but I think Culture and I made this point a couple times, is that basically they probably made more money off $30 a pop on Disney Plus, only selling it to 2 million people, than they did from the box office side of things, because they still only got a percentage of that. Plus, there's the worldwide box office side of things. So, by any way you cut it, Shang-Chi is never, ever going to make nearly as much money as Black Widow. Now, point needs to be made. I don't think either one is ever going to be profitable, period.
No.
I don't think they're ever going to make their money back. I don't think it's ever going to be a successful film in the eyes of the financial side of things, ever, period. Neither one of them.
Not on the primary release. A Black Widow with the Disney Plus Premier Access might have hit that break-even point, might have made a little bit of money. I mean, out of the $126 million that they got, and that was a number for everybody out there that they did disclose in arbitration.
Quick money up front for the long run.
Well, they kept about 100 of that 126 million if you factor out 20% that they have to cut to their suppliers, to the Roku sticks, and everything else.
I think here's the thing, and this is the way I know movie math, is 9 times out of 10 out of that stuff, they're lucky if they get at least half the box office, if that.
Yeah.
And that's to take home.
Yeah, it's about half. I mean, and this was part of the issue, is that things have changed, and this is why I was doing these videos this week. Part 2 tomorrow, we're going to be covering some of this 2021 data. And that is that, these deals, these revenue sharing deals that the studios have traditionally been able to secure with theatrical exhibitioners like AMC and Regal and Cinemark and so on and so forth, where they were getting 75% of the first 17 days, according to that report from Deloitte. That ain't happening now, especially not when you're doing concurrent releases on streaming services and things like that. There's no reason for these theaters to cough up that kind of percentage, and especially when you consider, even with something like Shang-Chi, where Disney's only agreeing to a 45-day exclusive release to theaters. This is not the traditional 90-day, 4-month, 5, sometimes 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. Here's my other question. It hasn't been cleared up for me yet. Now, when it does drop on Disney Plus in 45 days, is it going to be a $30 premium movie?
We don't know.
So many days, or is it just going to be flat out?
Well, the agreement was that the theaters would get it for at least 45 days exclusively. Disney did not stipulate that on day 46 that it would absolutely on that day hit Disney Plus, and they also did not stipulate whether it would be free or Premier Access. So Disney may not put it on Disney Plus. They might hold it another 15 days if they feel like, well, it's doing better. It still has some traction, so on and so forth. But the longer the amount of time that a movie traditionally has stayed in a theater, the more the revenue shifted to the exhibitioner versus the studio. Well, they're not getting that anymore. No. So why would theaters agree to still do that?
And that we brought up to begin with when the whole thing started. But no, like going back to Dune, though, here's another thing going back with Legendary, perhaps. Maybe Legendary gets a bigger portion of the international market. And maybe that's part of the deal. Maybe because go back in time, right? Let's go back. Legendary was pissed. We knew that. Then the deal was made. And then they pushed Dune back in the U.S., but it's now released in international markets, as Andre has brought up earlier, is because he's got to see it already. Maybe that was part of the deal, is they had certain contracts with certain international markets. So it's a 45-day window, basically, between now and the time it's on HBO Max. So I think that's the case here we're looking at, is I think that's part of the deal. I don't know if Andre has enough voice to chime in on that, but...
Well, we've started to see this roll up, though, for Dune that I think is going to work out for them, because it opens in many Asian markets on the 22nd. So after we've had this release in these 20 24 markets in Europe, we're going to have an additional set of markets open up in Asia. And again, I mean, with it getting through the Chinese censorship and it being in a position where, it's going to actually perform in China, I think you guys, I think we're going to be surprised by what the film is able.
I think it'll do well in China. I just don't know how much of that money they see. Fatal J is in the house though. Says he only came
What's
here
up,
for
Jay?
Valliant Renegade, and Tom is my hero. I love him so much. I cry to sleep.
Wow,
I love you too, Fatal J. It's been too long. It's been too long.
Fatal,
and then he doesn't want to
heart.
leave culture out, so he says culture casino. People will bow to him soon.
Oh, I hope
there you go.
True,
he didn't leave you out as well.
All right,
Thank you,
okay. I was
J.
going to be heartbroken because I love Fatal. I love.
In another super chat I can bring up on screen right now, Michael Miller says Kurtzman isn't renewed, no contract signed, regular source and SH source telling me that. Well, there you go. If that comes to be the pass, I have not heard anything otherwise on that note, so I can't add or to retract from that. Troy Pacelli sent in $5 and said, "Don't know if y'all knew this, but Disney is already taking orders for Black Widow DVDs and Blu-rays." Oh yeah, they're out.
Yeah,
they're coming
out. And Troy, and you bring up another interesting point that I'll be covering later, and this is part of the problem. And Tom and Andre have discussed this as well. So is culture.
They're going to collect dust.
There exactly the whole $30 those 2-3 million people that spent the $30 on the Premier Access Disney Plus. That was a one-time purchase. All those downline sales, when you look at that Deloitte report that I covered Tuesday in a video, it talks about all the secondary, tertiary markets, so on and so forth. When you do that on Premier Access, you eliminate all those downline revenues. Yep. That's it. That's it.
And Disney should know this. Like, they have a history of this shit. Like,
well, they do, and it's interesting that this week, Monday, I believe it was, Disney basically announced, Chapek announced via his Deadline and Variety and all those kind of places, that they are now committed. Every release from Disney will have a 45-day theatrically exclusive window between now and the end of the year.
Yep.
2022 is still up for grabs. I don't think they're going to go backwards. I think they're going to extend those windows because, look, this is the thing. And the reason why everybody's looking at this whole Shang-Chi's success and all this, it wasn't as big a success as Black Widow, but I think one of the things that Disney is finally understanding is that the problem is not the theaters. The problem is not, pandemic and people's fears about going out. We've seen it in college football stadiums, NFL stadiums, concerts, so on and so forth. The problem is that in the past 12 months, especially, or at least throughout this year up to this point, is that Hollywood movie studios have reprogrammed people's brains to look for major new releases on a streaming service.
Yep.
And people are too confused about what is coming out, where it's coming out, why is it not on streaming service, blah, 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 blah. Disney realizes that if they want to get back to pre-pandemic 2019 revenue sharing agreements where they were able to, for things like Infinity War and Endgame, squirrel 90% of the box office in the opening weekends for those kind of movies, those big tentpole pieces, they ain't going to do it with 45 days.
Nope. They
have to get back to where they were in 2019 in order to squirrel those kind of revenue agreements out of AMC and Regal and Cinemark. And Bob Chapek has signaled now to NATO, the National Association of Theater Owners, not the other NATO, but that NATO. Okay. But he's signaling to them, hey, look, we're going to play ball. We want to get back to where we were because we're realizing, Tom, like you said, like Andre said for many months here on Midnight's Edge, that the studios need the theaters more than the theaters need the studios.
Yes.
And that is not going to change anytime soon. That classic dynamic, that relationship is not going to alter because otherwise, as you guys have also stated many times, these big tentpole production budgets of 150, 200, Avengers Endgame was what, $400 million production budget? Something fucking crazy.
Something like that.
That ain't going to happen anymore with streaming services if they rely on that. There's no way to make up that revenue, especially when you then eliminate all the downline stuff where it could go to an HBO, Showtime, Cinemax Stars, and then onto network television, DVD and Blu-ray sales and all that. So no, this is where they're going.
Yeah, we've talked about this time and time again, how the secondary market is
5 revenue streams that they're saying no to.
Yeah, well, and Disney, and when this is what I meant by history is, I can't believe Disney is just willing to turn its back so quickly on home media when they not only pioneered it, they have had more of their films become profitable because of it. In fact, you have movies like The Lion King, the original animated film, which made just as much on home video
Mhm.
that it did in the box office.
Yep.
Mhm.
You have movies like The Black Cauldron that made dick in the box office, but have now become profitable because they are some of Disney's highest selling videos.
Yep.
And Disney knew exactly how to do this shit.
Yep.
They knew
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, they used to put the physical releases in the vault for X number of years, and they would roll them back out. And they were able to resell that copy of The Lion King. And Tom knows this because he worked in the video aspect of the industry. They sold it as a VHS tape, then they sold it as a DVD, then they sold it as a Blu-ray, then they sell it as a 4K Blu-ray. I mean, think about how many times you've owned.
Don't forget Laserdisc.
Yeah, well, yeah, way
Laserdisc
back
as
in
well.
the day.
I have it on Laserdisc.
Well, and
Think about how many times they sold the same dang film to people, right? And
Disney
it's
also had a thing where they would not show their animated films on television for the longest time either.
Yeah.
Disney had a stipulation. They were not allowed on TV. That was where it made the videos that much more
valuable
Mhm. in the long run of things, and he was smart with. They followed that same mentality that Disney introduced with the Vault program into the home video market, and that made their movies worth that much more.
Yep.
And now they're basically making them worth nothing.
Yeah.
They are making them content filler. Bambi is worth no more now than Little Mermaid 3.
Yeah, diaper filler actually is probably more appropriate, but it's a problem. It's a problem with the way that they were going about it. And again, I mean, if Bob Chapek he's got his faults, he's going to destroy the theme parks. He already is. But on the other side of things, maybe he will figure out how to get movies and other productions back to a profitable position, because right now you can't do it. You should be theatrical release, then physical release, then digital release, then streaming service, or you sell to someone else. You give them that 10-month window, like is what's happening with
and them used to come in.
You give them 10 months, and then it goes back to your streaming.
Then you had your network release, which was also used to be big money, but now the networks aren't shit no more. So that basically became your Netflix release.
Yeah, which is why you get reality programming now.
Well, but the other side of that too is that you still had to have a film in order to sell it to the networks and get the highest dollar for those leases. You still had to have a film that hit the box office and was successful. You still had to have a film that was showed up.
That's the thing. And that takes us back to the original thing, Valliant. You're right. Like, that's the whole point here. And that's where Shang-Chi is different than Black Widow is, it did not have that day and date release. So in a way, Shang-Chi is a little bit more of a prestigious thing because it is seen as a theatrical only thing. And that's the thing, when we worked in the video stores, it didn't matter if you got the catalog for the upcoming months of what was coming out. They made sure that you knew that was a theatrical release film, even if it got released in 2 markets, just so they could say it was a theatrically released film, because it meant that much more to the advertising of that movie. But I want to grab these super chats while they're still on the screen here. Fear Sundown says Disney lost $2.9 billion in 2020, making even 20 million probably won't. In net income won't help. They need 800 million hits that will likely never happen again. You're not wrong, Fear. Like, we're in a really strange time, and it's going to probably take years for things to kind of semi get back to normal. But when we see certain movies like Fast and the Furious and Godzilla versus Kong and certain other things do what they do, it shows me that there's still a market out there for movies. It's just the movies are shit, and people have come around to the idea that they're not going to spend the kind of money that it costs to go see a movie when they can just wait to see it in digital. Like, I've brought this up time and time again, where especially with Shang-Chi, I have not yet met one person in my personal life outside of my YouTube sphere that has seen this fucking movie or has any desire to. And the same kind of thing with Black Widow. A lot of people were just like, yeah, I'll watch it eventually. They just didn't have that desire to see it like they used to when it came to like Infinity War and stuff like that. It doesn't seem to be there anymore. I don't know if you guys have noticed that too, but yeah. You're muted, Valliant.
I culture casinoed it. I was going to say, in March, I mean, don't forget, GVK came out, and you still had a lot of the West Coast shut down. It opened on 25% fewer screens than Shang-Chi and Black Widow did, and look what it did.
Well, not just that, it was on HBO Max and was already available.
And day and date for free on HBO Max.
Yeah, 4,300 screens in North America. So when we get our domestic
Shang-Chi.
release, when we get our domestic release of Dune, it better be on the same number of screens.
And Godzilla's the little engine that could, because I don't know if Andre remembers this, but I told him, like, maybe we should revisit the postmortem on Godzilla, because and when we kind of put it into the newer thing, I'm like, this thing, something's going on here. They've shifted gears, they figured it out, and to this day, I'll give them credit, there's still Godzilla versus Kong toys on one of the biggest main sections of my local Walmart. Because as I pointed out 2 years ago, and I still stand by, kids love monsters and dinosaurs.
Yep, I got my 10-year-old. That's all he wants. He wanted Godzilla toys, Kong toys, dinosaur toys.
Legendary and Warner are like, why are we doing this dark, fucking adult-oriented shit? Let's just give the kids what they want.
Yeah.
And that's what Godzilla King of Monsters ended up being.
And just real quick,
and then
sell some merch.
Something Culture just said. And I just remind everybody of this. It better open on the same number of screens. I would agree, 4,300 screens. Here's the problem: is that you got the James Bond movie coming out October 8th, and that is a theatrical exclusive from Sony. They're going to try to bind theaters into this kind of traditional contracts where we want this on the biggest screens for this many weeks, and we want this because it's exclusive. Versus Dune's going to come out 2 weeks later, day and date on HBO Max. I'm going to be interested to see how the theaters handle this with Dune, because
they're not going to give it any
is
favoritism.
Yeah, James Bond is still going to be in its third week, and with an exclusive release, that third weekend, that's when the theaters generally start making a higher nut on these releases.
Valiant. And if they've got these exclusive deals, then I'm probably not going to be able to see Dune on an IMAX screen or in 3D, because No Time to Die is going to have all those screens.
It's possible. It's very possible. Yeah.
I think they're going to find out 1 week in that the people wanting to see Bond be destroyed is going to be.
It doesn't matter if they don't, because I remember this goes back to the Phantom Menace.
It's whatever they ink before it opens.
I remember the theaters. This is where the fallback on Star Wars began, was when the Phantom Menace came out and George Lucas wanted 75% of the opening weekend, and he insisted that theaters carry that son of a bitch for 15 fucking weeks. Or was it 14 weeks? Was it 14?
Well, no, I was going to say 15 weeks, but he wanted it
14
also,
or 15 weeks,
depending on the size of the theater. He wanted it on the four biggest screens they had.
The four biggest screens they had,
and they had to stay on those for the first 4 weeks. It's like something like that.
There was so many theaters pissed because they wanted to move the Matrix into those fucking screens and they couldn't.
That's right.
The Matrix was just making money hand over fist.
Killing it.
and Phantom Menace kind of petered out after the first 2 weeks.
So here's the numbers. These are the numbers that we should be paying attention to right now. The box office is still down 72% from 2019 numbers.
Mm-hmm.
It's still down 72%. Now, here's a more important number. We won't see the numbers get back to 2019 levels until at least 2024. It might be much later than that,
maybe,
and before we start to see tent poles, return to form. And there are industry analysts that think that even that's not practical, because they pushed that back from 2023.
If Hollywood produces the content,
I was going to say, I think it's just going to take the right movie. That's what I've been saying for a while. Maybe Dune is it, maybe not. Maybe Ghostbusters is it. Who fucking knows?
I think Spider-Man is going to be a bellwether.
Spider-Man. That could be a possibility.
You guys are just all about the Spider-Man film.
I know, but I think people are underselling it, and I think Valiant knows what I've been saying too, and that is, I don't give a shit about Spider, Iron Boy, whatever anybody feels about that. Take that shit and throw it aside, because you got Tobey motherfucking Maguire in this thing. Right. You've got Alfred Molina, you've got Willem Dafoe, you've
supposedly
got
Andrew Garcia, or not Andy Garcia, Andrew Garfield.
In the air still, but
I think he came out the other day pretty strongly saying if you want to see him in this film, you're going to be disappointed.
I don't know if he's going to be in this one. I think he's going to be in Doctor Strange.
Well, look, for the other reasons y'all were talking about earlier with Dune, or Mr. H was talking about, the fangirl following of Timothée Chalamet. There's a big ass fangirl following for Tom Holland. And I can tell you, as a father of 2 teenage girls, one's about 16, one's almost 14. They both are in love with Tom Holland.
Well, we can thank teenage girls for Johnny Depp as well. And I don't just mean because of 21 Jump Street. I've told this before, but the reason Johnny Depp got the role in Nightmare on Elm Street is he wasn't even there to audition, but Wes Craven's daughters said, "Pick him, Daddy. He's dreamy."
Yep. I've heard that story. Yep.
So he had 2 teenage daughters on the set, and they saw Johnny Depp, and that was their reaction. So that was why he got the job.
Never underestimate the power of the teenage girl to spend their father's money to go see it. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
And to be clear, I think they were like 14 and 17 or something like that at the time, and he was only in his early 20s.
That's mine.
Yeah, there you go. Tennille says, non sequitur, but I really appreciate that you guys stay apolitical and don't judge. We try to stay as apolitical as we can. Unfortunately, a lot of politics drive their way into our entertainment lately, but anyhow, or not lately, but in the last few years. Suffice to say, I live in LA and grew up in New York City. Wow. So you got both cultures.
Yeah.
But I never feel out of place here. That is diversity done right. Well, there you go. At least you've surrounded yourself with people who make you feel like you're doing things right. So that's a good thing. And you staying away from negativity, that's another good thing. And thank you for the $10. Ironcaster says with $5, Warner has made bad deals before. Remember how they had little expectations for Joker? Not only that, they missed out on all the profits. A lot of that. And I guarantee you some heads rolled because of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a $55 million film that grossed over $1 billion, and most of that went to the filmmakers.
It's the most profitable comic book movie of all time, and I'd argue it's probably the most profitable commercial film of all time. There are more profitable films.
Okay, but are we really going to continue to call it a comic book film?
I don't know about that. See, that's the thing is I'll argue more that it's probably the more profitable commercial film of all time, because the most profitable films of all time are shit like Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch Project and shit.
Say Blair Witch, $60,000 budget, and how much did that movie do?
So, but like to me, if you're talking like commercial films where it was made by a studio and released by a studio from beginning to end, I'm willing to bet Joker is the highest grossing film of all time.
Probably.
It's definitely going to be up there for sure. Yeah.
Because
if not the highest,
there's no way they even spent $55 million on it. They say that's what they spent on it, but here's the thing:
great follow-up to Taxi Driver. That's all.
Yeah, it is basically Taxi Driver.
That's a great example of a movie that grew some serious legs, word of mouth. And look, another good example was, and I brought it up a couple of times last week, was Greatest Showman, a 53-week theatrical run. And the money they made on the back end of that thing when it went to Blu-ray and holy shit! I mean, as somebody who's married to a music teacher, I'm gonna tell you right now that I bet they made as much money selling soundtracks to that motherfucker as they did the movie. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing. I guess here's my bigger question then for you guys: do you think some of these new contracts and these 45-day windows and certain things, are they going to be shooting themselves in the foot if they do happen to have a big hit, or do you think they're leaving themselves some outs just in case they get an Avatar or a Greatest Showman or a Joker?
Well, again, the 45-day window, theatrical exclusive window, that's the minimum that they have committed to, right? Okay. So they've told the theaters, you get it for 45 days.
Yeah, but again, see, some of these, and the reason I bring this up, because if it's Disney, they don't have to, right? They can change their mind. Warner can change their mind. But some of these other companies that don't have streaming services, they've made exclusive deals already. Like, isn't it like No Time to Die has an exclusive deal with, was it Apple or whatever, or Amazon or whatever? I can't remember which one it was.
I don't know.
They did with Paramount Plus, but now I think they do with Amazon.
I don't know if they set a hard date on that, though. I mean, I think maybe, I wouldn't imagine they would have set the date to where you get it 45 days after it opens.
Well, I don't think that the ink had dried on the Paramount deal. That's why they jumped to Amazon quick. Yep. I don't know what happened there, but originally Amazon had more money. Well, they did initially announce that Paramount Plus was going to have No Time to Die 45 days after, and then it jumped to Amazon because Amazon was buying MGM or whatever. But I don't know if that deal's still going through or what's going on. But yeah, no, Warner they need some better leadership, that's for sure. Dash D says, with the crap that keeps coming out, do you guys think that a movie of a classic like The Old Man and the Sea would be good, or would they F it up? They would F it up now.
They fuck everything up. I wouldn't touch it.
I mean, they've fucked everything up for the last 20 years. Here's a great example. One of the best remakes of all time, The Thing. Right? What did they do in 2011?
Didn't watch it. Didn't care.
I haven't seen it either.
No
I watched
idea.
like 10 minutes of it, and I'm like, fuck this noise. They tried that again. Total Recall. Same difference. They can't do nothing now. They even an adaptation of, unless you get I think the Dune is like one of those rare occurrences just because it happened to be the right guy, right place, right time, maybe. And again, I may be getting ahead of myself here on this, but again, like who else? There's not too many other directors right now I could think of that could handle something like Dune. Even though I wasn't a huge fan of all of Denny's earlier work, I look at that and I say, yeah, I can see this guy doing Dune, right? Like that is the only, unless you can find the right person to get behind the story. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Dune is one of those things to where the source material is a book. Somebody who's like The Thing and all that. The original source material was the original movie itself. So I think there's something to that.
That's not true. Actually, The Thing was a short story, and John Carpenter's is closer to it.
I guess I forgot about that. Okay.
And just to be full disclosure, The Thing 2011 wasn't supposed to be a remake. It's actually supposed to be a prequel. I know that, but they did everything they could to try and make it a remake from my recollection.
Still didn't care.
Yeah. But no, yeah. Again, I think it's all about who's behind it, culture. What do you think?
I think that, well, specifically which question? Because there's a lot of, you've covered a lot of territory.
All right. So thank you for that, Dash Dees. We appreciate that. And then hopefully I didn't miss one in between here, but then we had another one from Xenobid who says, Disney. Yeah, we heard you. I Disney vaulted my super chats for a couple days. Are they worth more now? They might be worth more, Xenobit. I'll have to check with Walt. His head's next to the super chats. Callum Lyle sends an Australian $2. Oh, somebody from Australia. Hopefully you're doing all right. Says you missed a lot of super chats. Yes, we've got some older ones I'm going to go through. I'm just grabbing the ones I can bring up on screen right now. Kaizu Chu says I don't know what that is. MYR? 6 of it, though. Thank you for that. Says, you guys are awesome.
I don't know what that currency.
Myanmar? Thank you for helping me save money. I think he's meaning thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So thank you, and hopefully, in the long run, if you appreciate our reviews and you think that your tastes align with ours, then yeah, I guess we would be saving you some money in certain aspects or sending you in the right direction in others. And we got Elaine from Nerd Cookies hanging out here.
Yeah,
I know she's curious if Andre enjoyed the film or not. I'm working on his review, and you can back it up and check out what he said before if you missed it. But yeah, Tennille89 sends in another 5, says to clarify, when I said here, I was referring to on your channels, not my physical location. Now that's where I was kind of confused or not, but that's good that you cleared that up, and thank you for that, Tennille. Hyperguyver2 says everything or nothing was the last good outing for 007. It was Brosnan's last run as Bond and Willem Dafoe as Nicola Diavolo. Am I saying that right? Sold it for me. Everything or Nothing, was that a different name in the US? Because that doesn't even ring a bell for me.
I don't remember. Wait, Willem Dafoe. I don't remember Willem Dafoe as in a Bros. Maybe. I
think he's making shit up. Hyperguyver likes to do that.
I was gonna say Dash D's. Thank you. The MYR is.
Or was that the movie
Malaysian.
Maybe they were gonna make? Maybe is it Malaysian? Well, wow, we got somebody from Malaysia listening. Awesome.
Yep.
Or was that maybe the Brosnan movie that never happened that was meant to happen?
Maybe so. I don't remember Willem Dafoe ever in one
I was going to say, I don't know him well enough. I'm still learning them. So Everything or Nothing was a video game. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And then with that, I think I can go back to some of these classic super chats here. Then we got Mags, who said with $5, as a normie Dune, I'm going to see it. I was young when I saw Lord of the Rings in the theaters, didn't read the books. Those movies got me into the Lord of the Rings books, etc. Yeah, she sent that. I remember when I was talking about how, when Lord of the Rings came out, it wasn't like this massively known property. Dash Dees then sent in $5 Canadian and said, wow, Andre, with all the gray in the beards, MI should be sponsored by...
I think him means Mr. H.
Yeah, it should be sponsored by Just for Men. I don't know if he'd want to be here to hear that anyway, so it's probably good he didn't. Mr. Tickle Trunk also says, I may purchase a theater ticket for Dune online, but not go. Hard for me to attend where I am. Bad idea. I want a sequel so bad. Will my ticket count? That's a good question, Mr. Tickle Trunk. I'm sure your ticket will count.
Yeah, if you buy a ticket, it's revenue. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. If you buy a ticket, you have cast your vote.
And then other than that, just watch Dune at nausea on HBO Max. Like, just
I mean,
There
look
you
at
go.
all the
May
people
actually
that
be in
said
that.
they went to
Yeah.
go to Shang-Chi. They said they bought tickets that they thought the theater was sold out. They walked in, there was 20 people in there.
Yeah.
Somebody bought tickets. So
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then we have a question from Brian Barth, who keeps on asking us in the chat. Do you think Andrew Garfield is in Spider-Man?
we actually
He is
just
saying
addressed
he
that.
is not.
We
Oh,
actually
right. Yeah, I was
addressed
there for a second.
it. We said he's saying he's not.
Yep.
I think he either is, and he's just told to say
He's
not.
lying.
He's either
Yeah.
lying, or he could be telling the truth, because I have a feeling he might not pop up until Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
He actually said a couple days ago that if you were looking for him in the new Spider-Man film, you would be disappointed.
yeah, y'all got to remember these actors are under very tight NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. They can't answer these questions. You know, they really can't. So they're
You
just
still
gonna
also got to
obfuscate.
remember that there was a lot of bad blood between Andrew Garfield and that whole thing.
Yeah, but,
So
but that was a different company. The bad blood was between
Technically,
him and
yes, but
Sony.
Amy Pascal is
This
still around.
Yeah, but the bad blood wasn't between him and her. The bad blood was between Andrew Garfield and Cassie Rai, the then CEO of Sony. It was Cassie Rai that got
Obviously,
pissed off at Andrew Garfield and told Amy Pascal, I want that guy out of here. Fire him. And she was, no, I can't. He's my spud. I don't care. Fire him. So it's Cassie Rai is the one that Andrew Garfield had an issue with, not Amy Pascal.
Well, we'll see. We'll see on that. And then the next one we had was from Kit
Before
Kat.
then, Kit Kat. We do Kit Kat.
It said, nice to see Mr. H on a panel. He has a different set of sources and an interesting individual take. Yeah. We're still friends with Mr. H. We don't know why there's always these, rumors of just because people aren't talking or somebody had a disagreement about something or whatever that they're not friendly. That's just nonsensical drama bullshit. Big Daddy MRI is in the chat, and he says, why is Paramount pushing Top Gun Maverick until May 2022? Isn't that going to impact their 2021 revenue stream? I don't get it. Hail to the panel. And thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. It'll do probably worse if they had released it this year. I think Paramount's playing the long game with that.
Yes.
And much like Ghostbusters, they have no incentive to release it now. They can release it anytime they want because it's not coming off of another sequel. It's not leading into another sequel. It is its own thing. It doesn't matter when it comes out. It'll still do just as well, probably, or better in May than it would have this year, probably.
And that's mostly what they said in the report, where they said, they want to release it at a more ideal time or something to that effect, which I understand. I mean, the carrying cost on this movie, okay, Paramount's going to eat the extra few $1 million it's going to cost them in interest. Here's the thing. Yeah, okay, it's going to show, a loss or 2021 loss for the revenue stream or so on and so forth. But what does that matter? It's a tax write-off for them at that point. If they have a negative year, it's a savings. They would rather push it off, get the higher revenue, because especially for a guy like Tom Cruise, you best believe that some bitch has a big ass box office back end deal. Kind of like, I'm not saying it's to the level of Robert Downey Jr., but it's in that same vein, to where Tom Cruise is demanding probably a very good percentage of the box office grosses. And I can tell you right now that Tom Cruise probably had a very heavy hand in that decision-making process for Paramount, because
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if he probably got paid $20-25 million to show up and shoot that movie, but that's the cat food. I mean, the real money is going to be on the back end, on the grosses, just like Robert Downey Jr.'s, to where he's going to get 1-3% of the grosses.
And they don't know how this movie is going to play either. That's the thing. They don't have anything to compare it to, like a Mission Impossible. So, and speaking of Mission Impossible, Dash D says, mission accomplished. I got Valliant to shake his head. Yes, you did. And then Ed Star, holy cow, sends in a huge $50 super chat.
Welcome aboard, Ed Star.
And says, after all this time, I finally became a channel member. Well, thank you for that. And thank you, Midnight's Edge, for keeping an eye on the pulp culture biz. That's what we do here, buddy. And we're glad to have you as a member. And thank you so much for that. And we got one from Rod Thunderheart, who says, Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning. Okay, Andre officially has me excited for Dune. You know what? I still haven't seen Shang-Chi, and I was more interested in saving money.
Wow.
Well, there you go. Well, I hope Dune is everything that Andre is saying it is, and it's more actually than that, because he seems a little tempered because of, again, I think like if he sees it again, or I think you'll get past the dogma of it. That's the problem I had with Dogma, is after reading that script for so long until finally seeing the movie. And it was kind of similar because like it was like 2 years between reading that script and seeing the film. So I had this build up for so long that I had to see it 2 or 3 times to actually appreciate the movie for what it was and understand why it wasn't everything else that I wanted it to be from the script. So hopefully that's the case and it's not a bad film. I think it's going to be all right. I don't know if you want to comment, Andre. I know your voice has been bugging you, so. And I'll take that.
Yeah. Also, I have like a crying kid in the background here. But
so,
yeah,
okay.
no. Honestly, like I have a very hard time neutrally assessing the movie Dune. What I will say is that other people who were there who don't know it, they freaking loved it. Like some people there in the audience who said they hadn't read the books or anything, they were so enthusiastic. You have no idea. Me, I was a little bit more tempered on the whole thing. Like, I like it. It's not bad, but just a little bit tempered. It's something with the direction and everything that I have to get used to. Like, I think it was like a little bit too epic in places, but I'll get more into it in the review. I think that those that are familiar with the source material and everything like that, I don't think you'll be disappointed.
And that's what I think, because I know you pointed out that some of those scenes when you were talking to Script about it were scenes where you said he brilliantly explained certain things and maybe a lot of that's gone, and it's, you enjoyed it and thought it was good because your whole idea was, oh, this will explain to the normie audience what they need to know. Maybe it's already enough of that in there, and that's where, you know,
that could very well be. That could very well be that they have been able to communicate what you need to know visually, but I wasn't able to pick up on how good the communication was because I already know the answer.
Exactly my point. My point. And I'm hoping and assuming, fingers crossed, that that's the case, because I know a lot about the worlds, the ins and outs, but I'm more of a novice in that sense. So I kind of will be like that middle ground. And then I'm curious to see how people who are completely going into it blind will react as well. Culture, looks like you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I'm also looking forward to Dune. I mean, I'm Andre got me hyped like 3 times over now since yesterday. So.
All right. Jesus Davila says, last week I asked Mr. Gore what wholesome movie he recommends, as well as that brought him to tears. I want to ask, which would you guys recommend? Oh, wow. Wholesome movie. Well, we're going to talk about a wholesome movie here in a minute, because we're going to jump back from the super chats into the stories, because we've got one more story to cover. One main story anyway. And then I don't know if we're going to talk about the Conan thing now that Andre's voice is shot. We might save that for Friday.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Well, I'm not too bad, actually. As for a recommendation, I can think of 2.
Sure.
Well, one is The Notebook. That's a movie that I was made to watch, but it's a real tearjerker. That's one. And The Notebook.
Both?
And yeah, it's like a romantic thing.
No, I mean both wholesome and it made you cry.
No, it's reasonably wholesome. Another wholesome movie was First Man.
Wait, which one was that?
That's the Armstrong movie.
Yeah.
Armstrong in the Moon. And
okay.
when he's there and he's remembering his daughter, like as a father of a daughter, that scene hits me.
I'd say, Mr. Davila, I don't know if you're watching this, if this is for yourself, if you have if you have children or anything like that. I can tell you one of the movies that I love watching with my son the most, and he loves it. If you want something that's, I guess, less dramatic, less drama and more kind of fun movie to watch, that's also wholesome and just as a tearjerker, I guess, as a dad, go watch Real Steel. I don't know if y'all
underrated film. Yeah, I know
that is a huge Jackman.
It's Rock'em Sock'em the Robots, the movie.
It's Rock'em Sock'em Robots meets Rocky with Hugh Jackman, and it's really a beautiful story. It's well written. It's really something special, and it like Tom said, it was very underrated. I never saw it in the theaters, and I got it. And I said, let me check this out. And I'm watching this thing, and I'm a huge Rocky fan, and I'm like, I'll tell you, I'll cry at the end of that movie with my son. Yeah.
Wholesome movie.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them. Well, that's your recommendation for both. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe, I know if rating isn't a concern, I mean, Forrest Gump got to me, especially at the end. I thought it was fairly wholesome. I don't know. I loved it. But if you really want something that's pure, Bambi, I'm crying at animation, right? Old Yeller. I mean, you can go back through the catalog of Disney films that make you just want to, find a building to jump off of. But I just, I don't know. I think Rocky's I think that's a fairly wholesome film, and that's
Rocky Balboa, especially the newer one.
It'll pull tears out of you. A romantic comedy, When Harry Met Sally, but that's because there's like some weird, stuff
when you said Rocky,
Yeah.
Warrior, the MMA movie with what's his face, Bane. And that
Tom
movie
Hardy.
right there. Tom Hardy,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That movie was also a real wholesome tearjerker.
That was a good one. I really enjoyed that.
Well,
and if you don't like that, if you want a secondary pick, Showgirls.
Oh. I think he's asking for two different things here, though. I think he wants one movie that brought you to tears. Most recent movie that brought me to tears.
Not wholesome.
I gotta admit that the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Oh God. With
It
Michael
got me
Rooker. Oh gee.
He may not be
I'm Mary Poppins.
I may not be your father, but I'm your daddy. And then the scene that got like that was close, but then it was like, okay, I got through this. I'm good. We got through this. Then all of a sudden, that fucking Cat Stevens song. It's like, God damn it, James.
That was
you
I have the SACD. I have like the high
Fucking
resolution album of
Niagara
that.
Falls, as they say in Scrooge.
all that father-son stuff like that, the really well-written father-son stuff, that is what gets to me.
And as far as wholesome films, gosh. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. It's a very wholesome movie.
It is.
I'm with you on that.
Quite a bit when we were talking about the last movie, and even all three of them, really. I mean, they don't have any overt sexuality in them. They don't have any drug use. They don't have a shit ton of swearing. The boys are very good-hearted gentlemen. They generally want to be friends with everybody. They don't have a hateful bone in their body. Hell, even they get the Grim Reaper to be their friend. I would say that the Bill and Ted films are good, wholesome family films that everybody can enjoy outside of a few minor things here and there that don't date well. In quotations, who gives a shit? That's all. I don't care. Other than that, I would say they're very wholesome movies, and they're good role models for kids in general. I think, even though they're not the smartest guys in the room, they, like I said, they love everybody, and they're never really negative. And they do seem to carry a lot of the things that I think a lot of kids and people are trying to get through that genuinely are on this quote unquote woke train, but don't realize it's just a bunch of propaganda. Like, really, that's all they want. They just want everybody to be friendly and be nice to each other, but they're trying to get there with the wrong means. I think
yes, Rob Altus. Apparently, Andre can cry.
Evidently, I don't believe it. And in fact, I'm going to give him a Ron Burgundy for that, because
adult men fighting each other in cages and dealing with father and brothers and stuff like that. Yeah, that may do it.
Yeah,
I don't believe you.
Is that true? I don't believe it. Organic Vistas. That's a new name, but I like that name. $4.99 says, Andre, so classy, his farts wear tuxedo. The rest of you have farts and dirty t-shirts. My name's Mike. Love you, boys. Well, nice to meet you, Mike.
Nice to meet you, Mike.
And that is a hell of a first super chat, man.
It is. Well done.
No, I think he sent before, but yeah,
I don't
sentiment
recognize
appreciated.
the name, but yeah, I'm sorry for forgetting the name. But like,
Yeah.
that's
I see a new Midnight's Edge animation in the near future
as far as
with Andre farting.
Andre is like this gaseous
and I
thing
may
with
have
a
missed a few in
tuxedo,
there,
and
and
the
I
rest
know
of
we
us
got
look
some
like
classic super
hobos.
chats.
Oh yeah, well don't you worry, you have a cameo in it, so yeah.
And we're gonna definitely get to those super chats real soon here, but I want to get to the story, and this will give Andre's voice a little bit of a rest before we get into those. I don't know if you boys have any feelings about this, but Flight of the Navigator is the latest Disney classic to get a female reboot.
No, I'm not. No, take this off the screen. Fuck that noise. No. Play the Tracy Morgan. No, right now. No. Hell no. No.
Andre's not aware of this film. Okay,
God.
Culture. I don't know if you're aware of it, but
I
clearly-
resent that. I'm aware of the existence of the film. I just haven't seen it, and I wasn't aware of the existence until you alerted me to it. Like
You want to talk about a
that.
feel-good movie? This was a feel. That was a
That's a good
movie.
segue. Here's a wholesome film for you.
Oh,
And Andre, I apologize and rephrase that. You aren't aware of how much this means to American kids of that age group.
Yeah, that could be.
Came out.
now I will say,
I still haven't seen it. So
looking at this headline, okay, Bryce Dallas Howard is attached to it, assuming she's probably the director.
Yeah,
I am willing to give this a chance because of her. I really am. I think she's smart, she's talented, she's been a good director. You know, she's one of those Jon Favreau Star Wars students. Hopefully, I'm keeping my fingers crossed that translates to this. She treats it respectfully. Because look, we've talked about this before on here. It's not like Bryce Dallas Howard or any director would have walked into this and said, you know what, let's take the same movie and make it with a girl. She was hired with that directive. She's being told, this is what we want to do. We're hiring you to do it. I let's hope it's treated respectfully. Look, I'm not saying it's going to be good. I'm not saying that I'm optimistic. I'm saying that
Let me read the story here.
Willing to let it give a chance.
Disney is developing a reimagining of its 1986 sci-fi live-action feature Flight of the Navigator with a female lead, a project that Bryce Dallas Howard is attached to direct and produce for Disney+. The original movie, starring Joey Kramer, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Veronica Cartwright, follows a boy who travels 8 years into the future from 1978 and has an adventure with an intelligent, wisecracking alien ship named Max. Paul Rubens provided the voice of Max in the film, which was released in late July of 1986, grossing an uninflated $18.6 million at the domestic box office. Ronald Kleiser, who directed Paramount's big hit Grease and The Blue Lagoon, directed the original Flight of the Navigator off a screenplay by Michael Burton. The project reteams Howard with Disney Plus. So this is going to be a Disney Plus film. This is what I was afraid of. This is the other thing I was going to bring up.
Well, look, the first one didn't have a huge budget. They don't have to do it. This is not a film that requires a tremendous budget. They don't have to get carried away with this.
Well, here's the other thing about Flight of the Navigator that most people forget or that gets overlooked. You know how everybody always goes, oh, Terminator and Jurassic Park had the first photorealistic CGI, even though, you know, we know that Tron and a couple other movies did use CGI before that. Mm-hmm. Flight of the Navigator actually has the first photorealistic CGI in it, and people don't realize it. The ship transforming and flying,
the first liquid metal, and it was the same liquid metal process they used on
in
Robert
Terminator,
Patrick.
And it was 5 years before that, and it also was the first time they figured out how to do the reflection shit into so.
And I believe it was ILM, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm pretty sure it was ILM who helped him with it. And this movie at the time when it came out wasn't a huge box office hit, but it was a huge video hit.
Oh, yes. And on TV, on TV for years.
Yes. And I just, and the funny thing is we all knew it as kids. That was Pee Wee Herman. But for the longest time, it was denied because it was credited as Paul Mall. But we all knew. And then finally, what was it, like 10 years after the fact, he came clean. He's like, yeah, that was me.
You could tell by the voice. Hey, let's go here. I mean, you guys, it's like, okay,
Well, he
it's
did the
fucking Pee Wee
whole
Herman.
thing. He didn't just do the Pee-wee side of things. He did this voice too.
Yeah, but you could
the
tell
whole
when
thing.
he went off, he went into Pee Wee voice as Max enough to where it was, you knew who it was. Yeah.
And this was the year after Big Adventure had come out and stuff like that. So I don't know why they didn't try and bank on that, but anyhow. So yeah, this sounds like a disappointment. Culture, what about you? What's your reaction to this? We already got Valiant.
I don't care. It's coming
You
out
were a
on
big
Disney
fan?
Plus. Yeah, I mean, the film was great and all that. Again, this is a '86 film. It's going back a ways, but you know, and there were some performances in it. The weird thing is, you know, okay, so you're going to put a female in the position of the boy and of the ship. I mean, is that what they're going to do? I mean, because there were two females in the original film. I don't know. Look, I don't care. If it's going to be on Disney Plus, I don't care. I mean, I mean, I likely won't be watching it. What's the words that this is not for me. So you know, I'm not
wrong.
I'm not in this, and you know, I don't care. That's
And
my
Dash
answer.
D responds to Valiant's response, and he's like, "Now, Valiant, what have I told you about fence sitting? Because clearly he's fence sitting on this."
I'm willing to give it a chance. I'll watch it on Disney. I mean, if I still have Disney Plus at that point, I pay annually, so my
I'll watch it
subscription
just to
runs
see how
out in
bad it
November.
is.
Yeah, I'm still up in the air of whether or not I'll renew it, but I'm willing to give it. Look, this is one of those things to where, okay, and I know we all get exhausted out there because everything is getting gender swapped, race swapped, so on and so forth. You know, this is kind of one of those roles where whether it was a boy or a girl in the beginning, I don't know if it would have made a whole bunch of difference. I know there was an appeal at the time because that kind of sci-fi fantasy was definitely more in the vein of boys would have wanted to watch that kind of movie, and that's why they did it. I don't think it's going to have a tremendous impact as long as they don't get stupid with it, as long as they don't, again, like anything else, don't inject 2021 politics and shit into it.
She was in the Pete's Dragon remake, and I fucking hated that. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, Valiant, you and me.
Didn't see that one. Yeah.
We're going to go to Hollywood and wedgie everyone who greenlit Flight of the Navigator reboot. Wedgie packed, let's go.
It's not a movie that needs to be rebooted. It's
I'm going to tell you,
I'll
throw something out there. If I doubt Bryce is listening, but if any of our people are listening, anybody at Disney Plus is listening, here's how you do this. Fuck doing it as a movie. Do it as a Disney Plus series like you did with Mighty Ducks, but make it a fucking sequel. Don't make it a goddamn reboot. Make it about him. Have it be his daughter. Have it be the ship has come back and said, I need the star charts, but it's no longer in his head because he already pulled it out of there. But lo and behold, he passed it through his DNA to his fucking daughter. Bingo. Movie.
That's great. Bring back the original kid. Bring back the original actor to be the dad. Yeah, exactly. That's Tom. That's perfect. That right there is perfect.
You get Pee Wee Herman to come back and do the voice of the ship. I lost my charts. That's all you need.
But at least I didn't hit you in the back of the head with the spoon.
I do not leak. You leak. Exactly. Mr. Tickle Trunk, that's what I think we need to do. Go get some fucking wedgies done. Get some, not to bring up Kevin Smith again, but we need to do what Jay and Silent Bob did with their motherfucking movie money.
I'm reading Xenobit's comment. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Xenobit says they will have Zendaya play the Navigator.
She's too old. She's too old,
luckily.
Yeah.
She could play the Sarah Jessica Parker part. That's the thing. They won't recast that as a guy. But yeah. And yes, he is still alive because he's actually got in trouble about 10 years ago for holding up a fucking bank or some shit.
All these child actors do, every fucking one of them.
He's out now and he's clean as far as I know. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because he's actually in the making of stuff on the recent Blu-ray release. And Mr. Tickle Trunk says, be a man, Valiant, 2 words, wedgie packed.
Wedgie packed!
Yeah, I think we should. Anybody who's seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Our motherfucking movie money. Dash D says, how about the ship from Farscape and the Navigator came from? Oh, geez. And Ed agrees with me. See, that's what I'm saying. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right.
All right, I got a couple more super chats here before we got to bug Andre with his voice again. We got the Mr. Tickle Trunk one, Kit Kat we got, Dash D, we did not get this one. I'm very disappointed there's neither cultures nor a casino, and that hair and that sig hat will keep my attention, though. There is culture,
Damn right.
here, but it's just the guy, not an actual thing.
Yeah, I am neither culture nor a casino.
That's right. That was the warning last night on Midnight's Edge After Dark, and you heed that warning. Callum Lyle sends in 5, I believe that's Australian dollars. Thank you so much. Says, listen to the music from Inama Nushif from Children of Dune TV series. Yeah, that was one thing I know Andre and I were kind of talking about last night, and some of the rest of us got into, is how shitty the music is in the new movie. That was one of his main gripes of anything. And I can.
The more I think about the music in the new movie, in the new Dune, the more I hate it.
Oh no. Well, I'm pissed because I wanted to get the soundtrack, because you know what? I have bought very few soundtracks in the
You want to give yourself a headache? Yeah, you go buy that.
That's the thing. In the last 20 years, I've bought very few soundtracks, and it goes back to when I bought the Man of Steel soundtrack. I bought that because that dropped like just before the movie came out.
That was a great soundtrack.
Not really.
Well, it's for me, but yeah.
Tom, how do those 3 notes go again?
Boom, boom. But I'll at least give that to him.
That's 3 notes more than you have in this movie.
One, I'll give her 2, because that's just it. That was like a sign of things to come. It was like from that on, and it kind of started with Dark Knight, I should say, because I did buy the Dark Knight soundtrack, but at that time when he did it for Dark Knight and some of Nolan's films, it fit better. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't, like that whole bit with the opening thing with the Joker and stuff, it was different. We hadn't heard music like that before, but now it's been 10 fucking years, 20 years almost. Get a new bag, man. You got to come out. I mean, this guy wrote some really great classic scores, like I'm disappointed, very disappointed. Zimmer has done much better than this in the past.
Yep.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah.
Zimmer was the guy. I mean, his claim to fame when he started out, I think the first big thing I remember was Lion King.
Before that, he did, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he did like Rain Man and shit and a few others.
Yeah, I guess, Rain Man, let's see, Lion King was 92 or 93, 94, somewhere in there.
Actually, here, let me see. I got a few of his old classic ones myself.
Rain Man, I'm trying to remember the score to that. I mean, he's done a ton of stuff. But that was the first one. I actually still have somewhere around this house. I have an old
Gladiator.
Roland, well, that was way after. But I have an old Roland magazine from, Roland, the guys who make the keyboards and the sound equipment and all this. I have an old Roland magazine that was featuring Hans Zimmer's interview right after he did the score for the Lion King on all the Roland stuff.
Back in the day, he did. Or am I thinking of the wrong guy for Rain Man? I'm thinking of Zimmerman. Probably.
Well, I mean, the two big, you had Hans Zimmerman back then, and you had, Alan Silvestri was making a bunch of stuff. Yeah, they had a lot of great composers back then. But anyway.
Anyway, back to super chats. We've got Dash Dees, who says, you can't give actors trouble for good at acting. I'm reading it just as it is. It's in the name. It's like giving Sniper trouble because he uses bullets. It's just what they are and what they do. Oh, I think that might make going back to Mr. H's original comment on actors, I think. As far as
I know exactly what he means. Like the actors, when they say complete bullshit, and they, like Rebecca Ferguson throwing Frank Herbert under the bus. And for those that wonder what we're talking about, go check out the video we posted yesterday, where she did a whole spiel about how problematic the original Dune is and everything is. And this isn't coming from her. I mean, these are talking points fed to her. I mean, this is the marketing campaign. She's an actress, and she's still doing acting because this is part of the campaign. That's pretty much all there is to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the actors, and I'll say this over and over again: stay out of the politics. You're an entertainer. Get on stage. You're given a paycheck. I'm sorry, to get out there and dance and entertain us. That's it. When you start talking politics and you start injecting this kind of stuff into things, you're going to alienate at least half your audience, no matter what you say. There's no point in doing it. And this is part of the problem that Hollywood continues to face for the last several years and will continue to suffer from if they can't learn to shut the hell up. Just like with Kevin Smith, we said months ago, it's like, hey, this is easy. If you're in charge of a major Hollywood production, you have one job, and they need to start putting it in your contract. Shut the hell up and stay the hell off Twitter. If somebody challenges you, don't answer it. This is easy for Hollywood to do, and they should be doing it. I mean, but NFL have had this problem. All the sports venues have had this problem. They've got to, just shut up, quit alienating fans.
Well, but see, this is, this has been likened to, some other kinds of movements, and these people are witnessing whatever it is they're trying to witness for, or however you want to put it. And it is destroying exactly what you said. It's destroying people's interest in seeing this thing because they know they're going to get preached at. So people don't watch late night talk shows anymore. They don't care about the interviews with these celebrities because they've essentially imploded. The death of celebrity happened going back a ways. I mean, Tom and I have had that conversation lots of times, and we're watching it decay.
And that's like the point. These interviews and stuff like that, they're not for us. They're not for the audience. They're for the industry, for virtue signaling, telling everyone you can support us is fine. It's not going to blow up in your face.
Yeah, and you look at that, like what Lindsay, the cynical geek, just said. Yeah, if I were an agent, no politics talk would be in their contract, period. And I agree with you. But the problem is that a lot of times it's the agencies that are telling them to go out there and make these statements because they live in these Hollywood bubbles. Yeah. And they're not talking to the other 98% of the country. They're talking to certain circles where they work that expect to hear these kind of things. This is how detached and how insular
these communities have become. They're practically in a cult. And it's not enough to be quiet. If you are quiet, then you might be a secret Trump supporter. So you have to go out there and you have to show how down you are with the cause and how much you hate the enemy, so that everyone knows that you're a good little cultist and they can work with you and give you more opportunities. Yeah. It's a complete cult mindset. That's kind of what it is. And Dash D says it could be worse. Simmer could love bagpipes. I do believe I heard a couple of bad bagpipes within all of the other industrial noise in the Dune score, actually. But, yeah. Yeah, no, that was honestly, the more I think about it, my least favorite part of the movie was absolutely the score. It was epic. If you listen to that in a headset just without the imagery, you're going to get toothache real freaking fast.
Wow. And that's because we all know how much the audio atmosphere brings to any of the
it did kind of work for the imagery, but if you take it away from the imagery, that audio is not going to work on its own. I'll tell you that much.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm still looking forward to the film. Like I said, I mean, I'm 3 times more pumped up than I was, 2 weeks ago. Which
I'm glad to hear it because it's a very good adaptation of the story, and it's not woke. It absolutely isn't, unless you consider woke to merely have women and black people in it. If you have that low a bar, then yeah. But story-wise, there's no compromise. There's not a single instance of a male character being emasculated or propped down just to prop up a woman. There's no thing like that in the entire movie. So it's not woke. And also, Xenobit wonders, can Andre do readings in Doomcock's voice? No, I can do readings in one voice only, and that's mine. I'm afraid that this accent is one I'm completely stuck with. I can try to make it more or less pronounced, and that's about it.
To be fair, I think it's because they all know that Doomcock loves doing his Andre impersonations.
Yeah, I know, and that I like them too. I think they're cool, but there's a bit much Bela Lugosi in them. Like, I've never sounded quite so Eastern European as when Doomcock does me. But outside of that, I think he's awesome. I love it when he does readings in my voice, especially when he's.
I saw that culture. I saw that culture. Oh, Lord.
Oh, yeah. Good times.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, are we all caught up now?
I'm going to go and check because I didn't quite catch every single. I don't know which super chats Tom if anything missed, so I'm
I'm
just going to
here
go
now.
into it. Yeah, okay. I'm going to just go and update so you can have a look at super chats that you might have missed there. Paris Blaine, he just said, Andre, I went shopping for DVDs. Take my money. Oh, thank you. I'll put them to good use for DVDs then. See if we can give it up on screen.
And if anybody has not hit that like button out there yet, now's a good time.
Yeah, now is a very good time. And thank you so much, Paris. Much appreciated. And Tom, I'm going to send you the list of the other super chats here so you can see which ones that we missed, if any. And in the meantime, you can introduce the next story.
Well, pretty much the big story was Conan news that you actually did a video about that I believe we dropped this morning. If you haven't yet,
we did indeed.
And that was that basically this company, Funcom, has now bought the right of Conan. And so, Conan has a big conglomerate behind it now. But as of now, Frederick Malmberg is still involved. And you got into some more details about that with him in an exclusive interview.
Yes, we did indeed. And that interview is one we published a few hours ago. This is something that we just recorded on the fly before I went to see Dune in theaters. So it wasn't like massive prep time or anything like that. There's only so much that he even can say because everything is so fresh. But I would like to get everything from the source itself. And basically what he said is that things are going to, in the short run, things will continue pretty much as usual. He will still continue to be in charge of Conan, all the current licensees. Nothing is going to change there. What changes is that now they have much, much more resources behind them. That is the biggest change in the short term. So I'm curious, Valliant and everyone else here, because Tom, you haven't chimed in either. So Valliant Culture and Tom, what do you make of these news?
Well, we did talk a little bit about it last night, but we're cautiously optimistic, I think, at best, because unlike what was said in the interview, this company behind Funcom, Tencent,
this is the real issue. This is where I have my reservations.
From what I've heard, they're not as friendly as Frederick seems to think they are. But at the same time, Frederick also said that he's answering to people at Funcom, not Tencent. But Culture, I know you had a few things to say about that, and I'm sure Valliant has an opinion on that. But let's go to Culture first.
Yeah, I'm a little more optimistic based on the interview I listened to, obviously. But I was concerned about this when the news broke yesterday. We actually talked about it. And because I think it broke during the Tuesday Tirade show, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I mean, based on everybody's opinion of the game and everything else, I mean, as long as they don't go out back and retroactively change any of the stuff they've already developed and they continue to develop it in the way and Malmberg's still running things, I feel like that is going to be okay. Tencent is a China company. I mean, they are, and they do a lot of, mobile games and stuff like that. I mean, that's kind of their wheelhouse. They own a decent chunk of Epic, right? So I think they're, I mean, they're motivated by profits. All of the companies that are partnered with the China government, they're motivated by profits, right? And so they're probably gonna stay a little hands off, at least initially. I'm not sure what they could possibly do to influence the property overall, but as long as they don't license it out to another party, let's say like Warner or Disney, I feel like there's nothing to react to at this point. That's how I feel right now. Yeah.
Valliant.
Pretty much what Colt just said. I watched the interview that you put out this morning. I didn't really know too much about it, but what he said is correct. With a company like this, even though it's corporate overlord, if you go high enough up the food chain as somebody like Tencent, China's a communist government. There's only one way communist governments ever survive financially, and that is to live off of free people's money until it runs out. So, they're driven by a profit motive. And that's why that, we talked earlier about legendary pictures and all this. This is why, the CCP or their financial surrogates are out there buying up these kind of properties, buying up things like Legendary and things like Tencent buys up something like this company. I don't think they want to do a lot of radical changes. I think at the end of the day, they're going to want to do with whatever they think is going to make the most money. Obviously, Conan is not a property that is intended or will probably do well, maybe, in China for Chinese audiences, but they don't care. They're buying this to produce content that people outside of China are going to consume.
Here's the thing:
pay for.
Tencent actually aren't even involved with the decision. This is something that was decided between Paradox, that basically run themselves, even though they are under Tencent ownership. And with Cabinet Entertainment, and Tencent probably had nothing to do with it. They're probably just going to read in the financial papers, oh, okay, Funcom did this and that acquisition. As long as the money keeps flowing, cool, we don't care.
Exactly. And I'm not saying Tencent is coming down with a directive telling them and micromanaging things. I'm just saying this is why they buy these kind of companies, like you just said, is for them to keep doing what they do that does make money. So I don't know, like I said, I hope it turns out to be good. It sounds like it does. It sounds like the person in charge, the gentleman you interviewed and put that video out this morning, is going to be faithful to the product, going to be faithful to the intellectual property.
He has been the past 2 decades.
Yeah, and I hope it's great. I have not watched a Conan anything in God, it's been ages. I'd love to see something new.
Yeah, and like my only reservation here is actually Tencent, because here's like the thing: in the short run, the only thing that happened right now is that Fredrik Malmberg suddenly got a hell of a lot more money and resources to deal with. He suddenly got much more power in dealing with, for instance, Netflix and the like. But yesterday or 2 days ago, he was the buck stops here guy on everything. He still has that formal responsibility. But now that the property is technically owned by Funcom, which in turn is owned by Tencent, he only has that power in so long as he's allowed to have it, first by Funcom and then by Tencent. If either of the two suddenly decide that we want to go completely nuts right now and take things in a different direction, they can do that because they're the ultimate owners. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's theoretically possible. I'm not overwhelmed of joy with that, but I am overwhelmed with joy over the image on screen. That's pretty freaking awesome.
Douglas
I was going to say, where did this one come from, Tom?
Douglas Nelson at it again.
So does that? Am I Duncan, Idaho?
I think so.
All right.
It looks like I'm the Beast Raban.
That's about right. I'll take Duncan, Idaho. I'm Jason Momoa. All right.
I feel princely. So I'll put.
Yeah, you're the 14-year-old kid. There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
Nice, very nice. I love it.
Xenobet says, any updates on Freddie Mercury and the Cruisers 2? Freddie lives. Nothing new, just that it sounds like they're insistent on making it happen, and considering how much money Bohemian Rhapsody made, I wouldn't put it past them. That's one of those things. I don't know. And I don't know if you. Oh, sorry, Andres. I don't know. If you got
that's right.
Column Lyle says F. Kevin Smith. I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
And then Dash Deese came in before that with casinos right about audio. In Saving Private Ryan, when the tank comes slamming over the rubble pile, it freaked me out. Good thing my pee smells like nothing. Oh, shit. Yeah, you can never beat a great soundtrack, that's for sure. Darius Munchausen sent us a sticker. I can't see what it is, but I'm willing to bet it's popcorn.
It's probably a box of popcorn.
Can you see it, Andre, on your end?
Give me 1 second. It's probably a bunch of popcorn, yeah. But give me 1 second.
Did it just come in?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
if that.
It's a box of popcorn.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Darius. He generally does send us a box of popcorn because he knows I love popcorn, and it has butter on it, so Andre won't eat any, which means more for me.
Wait,
then we had a couple more.
Andre, you don't have butter on your popcorn?
No, we have salt in our popcorn.
Sure, you salt it, but you don't butter it too?
No.
Oh, okay.
He says it's nasty.
The first time when I was in America and I tried popcorn with butter, I was like, what the hell is this?
I know.
It's like one of like those differences they can talk about in Pulp Fiction.
I had the same reaction. I was like, how can you have popcorn without butter? It's just beyond me. And then we had a couple of classic super chats here. Naked Fame says with $2, the girl will teach the ship about periods. Girl power. Oh, gosh. I hope not. Talking about Flight of the Navigator. Then we also had another one come in earlier from Callum Lyle as well, who says the girl will be lesbian probably. I hope not. The boy wasn't even that old in the original one. So.
No, they're like 12 years old. And Dallas Bryce Howard to this point does not strike me as that kind of director.
But here's the question: will she have a choice in the matter, though?
Well, that's like I said. I don't think she had a choice about making this a female reboot. She was brought in after Disney had already made apparently that decision upstairs. So, but I don't know. We'll see.
And then we had two more super chats here as far as the classics go that we missed before. Xenobit said, I'm sure Bambi's mother made a very nice rug. Oh, I'm sure she did. And then Incogchito sent in $5. I love that name. Says, years ago, I was playing a racing game with a friend of mine and was inspired by Dune, but it had some glitches. It was a little Dune buggy. That's a dad joke. I like it. And with that, I think outside of these newer ones here, we're caught up on the classic super chats. But please let us know in the chat if you think we missed any. We will definitely make sure that no super chat gets left behind. And then we have Xenobit flying in here with another one who says, I heard Fabio eats his popcorn without butter. I can't believe it.
It's terrible.
That is
terrible.
Clever joke. I don't know if Andre would get that joke though.
I completely
Fabio was a male model and he used to pimp out I can't believe it's not butter.
Oh, okay, right. I see.
Mr. Tickle Trunk says wedgie packed Valiant, just yell compliance.
I gotta do it in the Paul Rubin voice then, I guess. Compliance.
That is very good right there.
I do not leak, you leak.
And with that, I think we're caught up, aren't we?
I believe we are.
Indeed, I think so.
Like I said, unless we missed anybody, please let us know real quick. Tag us real quick in the chat. And if we missed it, we'll definitely double check. But I believe we caught them all. So
just like Pokemon. Pokemon. That's awesome. So with that, I'd like to say thanks to our guests of today. First, Mr. H, that had to leave a bit earlier, but also Valliant and Culture. Thanks so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Well, great to be here. It's working out right now since I have no internet at my office, and I hope I get that back soon.
Xenobit said they should have made Fabio do a commercial promoting Dune. I can't believe it's not woke.
Don't give him ideas.
Actually, that would be necessary just to counter the narrative they've already put out there, because they've not in the trailers, but in the conversation surrounding the movie, they've created the impression that it's woke as F. And I wonder how many people have been put off by that.
Well, and I just say, look at the reviews. Look at what you've said. We've had a couple people chime in who have seen it in the chat as well. And I think it's pretty clear that they're just using this marketing scheme as we predicted would happen, Andre, because, they see the movie as having a white savior problem. So.
Yeah, and we said this 1.5 years ago, expect this. They're going to try to virtue signal really, really hard just to distract from the fact of what the movie actually is. And it isn't. it isn't what you can think. The problem is that those that would go and attack, they don't do it for logical reasons. They're not going to use reason. They're going to use emotion and go with an emotional attack with outrage. And the only way you can beat that, or not beat it, but like placate it, is with more emotion. And that's what we're seeing in these stupid woke interviews.
All I can say is this, and I beg and plead, everybody and anybody who has anything to do with the production of Dune, stay the motherfuck off of social media. Don't say shit to the fans. Don't say anything about anybody's fucking feelings about this movie one way or the other. Stay the fuck out of it and you'll be the better for it. Let the media bury themselves. Please. Dash D says Fox bought TMZ. Why didn't you start with that? Because that's news as usual. Things wouldn't change over there as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, it's just it's all the same in the day. And they're all full of shit.
Yeah, I think that was yesterday even. But yeah.
STR Red Wolf then says, so it's time for some soggy marsupials. Yeah. Yes, it is. STR Red Wolf, time for soggy marsupials. Stay tuned for Andre's formal Dune review. Hopefully I'll have that edited before too long. So until then, we'll see you kids on Midnight's Edge Espanol tomorrow morning. We will have Midnight's Edge After Dark in the afternoon or evening, whatever it is where you is. And we want to thank Culture. We want to thank Valliant. We want to thank Mr. H. And we also have Paulus Plain firing in a super chat here. If you want to read that, Andre, since he's your...
Yeah, sure. He says, Americans, how do you eat popcorn with butter? It's sticky. Take my money. Yeah, you see there, he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
What is wrong with y'all's butter over there? Why is your butter sticky?
That's a good question.
We actually use butter so shit
because we have real butter. Maybe
I was about to say it's probably I don't know what the oil they pour. I usually just take the popcorn right out the machine. I don't get the extra jizz on it. So.
I will admit that yes, in a lot of theaters they do use that nasty ass fucking oil shit. I'm not going to
butter flavoring.
But when it comes to actual real butter on popcorn, you can't beat that shit.
No. Yeah, real butter.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. I don't know if you're getting sticky butter, then you're getting it out the wrong cow, motherfucking right.
We don't have a cow. We have a bull.
I'm going to go wash up now.
What's that from? Yeah,
that is from Kingpin.
Yes, it is.
God, Kingpin is the grossest film ever.
I got up early and I took the liberty of milking your cow. He takes a big old chug out the fucking bucket.
It's the grossest movie ever.
That was terrible. We have a bull.
Callum Lyle says Kathleen Kennedy, patient zero for why current Hollywood is what it is. No, actually, patient zero would be Josh Trank.
Yeah, kind of. It kind of would
and
be.
Then actually was perfected by Paul Feig.
Yeah, and Kathleen Kennedy, she came in later and just pushed it up to yet another notch. But she wasn't the first. She's not patient zero. Let's not give her that credit. She's standing on the shoulders of other not quite so giants.
Two other complete morons and then some. And plus the Me Too movement and other things that added into that. Eric Wimberg sends in another $2 and says, hail and catch you later. Thank you, Eric. And thank you all, Eric, for all the little extra, what do you call them? PayPals. I couldn't think of the word. Eric will just send me $2 on PayPal once in a great while for no good reason. And he'll just say, here you go. Just thanks for all the work you do. And I appreciate that. So I don't get an opportunity to thank you when you send those. So I just wanted to thank you now for those. So,
yeah, and Eric actually used the tipping mechanism that I set up for $2 the other day, and I didn't get a chance to thank him yet. So thanks for that, my friend.
See, and Dash D says this is exactly what I was thinking. Wow. They milk the male cows for butter in Norway, evidently. Nut butter is more like it. Xenobit then says, still think Patient Zero was Michael Moore. You might not be wrong on that, Zeno.
Well, either way, Kathleen Kennedy has always stood on the shoulders of bigger men.
Well, Michael Moore's not so much the woke side of things as just the uber political side of things. He's bought into the woke business just because that's the leftist slant now, right? I remember a time when Michael Moore was actually a really decent documentarian, and then he turned to shit. Like somewhere around, what was it? It was after the Columbine one he did. Somewhere around there, somewhere in there.
No, that was where he went hyper political.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere in that area. Before
when he came
that,
out
all
with
this
like
stuff was
Fahrenheit 9/11.
Yeah,
And
that's
all
that's the demarcation line there, somewhere in there, because that one wasn't even that bad. Like again, like because some of his earlier stuff, I can't say like Roger and Me and The Big One and a few of his other earlier ones are pretty damn good documentaries. I'd say I'd still stand by him. I mean, unless we find out that he completely was full of shit in those documentaries. I mean, come on. And even had a TV show for a while that was fairly decent, but like, yeah, he just got to a point where he got uber political, and yeah, it's like he's trying to outdo fucking what's his face meathead Rob Reiner.
Oh yeah, I hate America, but I'm going to use your system to make money for myself that I claim to hate or something.
Isn't that funny how Rob Reiner actually became his fucking character on fucking
Oh God,
the Family over the years?
I look back every day like, yep, Archie Bunker was right.
You are a fucking meathead.
Archie was always right.
That's the thing. That was like a hyperbolic version of that, and he's become that now. That's the sad thing. Yep. Anyway, moving on. I don't know how we jump from Moore to Rob Reiner, but they're two of the same fucking.
As long as the super chats keep rolling in, I'm good.
I think we got them all. It's time for Marsupials in the Rain. Everybody wants Marsupials in the Rain. Go on ahead over to Hot Toys with Robert Meyer Burnett and Az, and tell them we sent you.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.